In 2025, I decided I wanted to train and eat like a Hashira from Demon Slayer for 60 days. This is that journey. I'm going to be eating the Demon Slayer's favorite Taisho era foods, and maybe by the end of all of this, I'll learn to breathe better. And I'm starting with none other than everyone's favorite, Mitsuri, the love Hashira. And before I get my day started, I have to make a ton of Sakura mochi because Mitsuri eats so many of these to get her signature pink hair. Sakura mochi isn't just one of Mitsuri's favorite treats. It's a dessert with deep historical and cultural roots in Japan. There are actually two main regional styles: the Kanto style, made with pink wheat-colored crepes, and the Kansai style, which is what I made today. Sweet glutinous rice wrapped around red bean paste and encased in a pickled cherry blossom leaf. The history of the Sakura mochi actually goes back over 300 years. It was first created in 1717 at the Chomeji Temple in Edo, which is modern-day Tokyo, by a temple gatekeeper who began selling the treat using the fallen cherry leaves from the nearby Sumida River. Since then, it became a seasonal specialty sold during spring's cherry blossom season, a time for family outings, festivals, and flower viewings known as Hanami. By the Taisho era, Japan had fully embraced Hanami as a public event, and Sakura mochi was a must-have snack during these gatherings. It's a perfect blend of opposites: soft and chewy rice, sweet and earthy red bean, and that floral, slightly salty kick from the preserved sakura leaf. Now, why does this matter for Mitsuri? She's all about contrast: sweet and bubbly, yet incredibly strong and focused in battle. That balance is exactly what Sakura mochi represents: delicate on the outside, but powerful within. And that fleeting beauty of the cherry blossom, it's like Mitsuri's moment in battle: brief, brilliant, and unforgettable. I've prepared a bunch of these to eat throughout the day because honestly, if Mitsuri's having 100 plus of these every single day, I've got to try to keep up. But that's not even what I'm having for breakfast. I'm actually making some pancakes because Mitsuri loves sweets. She actually makes these pancakes for Tanjiro after he's finished recovering, and Tanjiro has no idea what they actually are because pancakes and sweets are not that common during the Taisho era of Japan quite yet. We're never really informed as to why or how Mitsuri knows about pancakes or other Western style influenced foods, in particular baked products. The biggest thing that I can think of is that Mitsuri frequented Western style cafes that started to pop up during the Taisho era in Japan. Mitsuri has a massive appetite, and she has a very open appetite when it comes to trying new foods. So it's not totally out of the question that she does have an extensive knowledge of Western style foods during the Taisho era of Japan when a lot of other people may have not. I absolutely love this aspect about Mitsuri. She's a true foodie at heart, and not only does she enjoy eating food, she enjoys making it for other people she cares about. She wants them to be just as happy eating these special foods as she is, and this is why I love Mitsuri.
But this isn't the only thing for breakfast. I also am going to be eating Sakura mochi with every single meal. It's going to be my dessert after my it's 2 desserts for breakfast. It's fine. This is going to be a long day, so I'm going to enjoy these. How do you like eating your pancakes? Are you a dunker? Or do you just like pouring all the syrup right on top? To be honest, I'm actually a dunker, but I like pouring it on for video because it looks really, really good. Oh, look at these. Look at that. They're so good. Get a little bit of butter on there. Oh, cheers. I don't have pancakes that often. This is a treat. I love this recipe so much. But the other treat I get to have for Mitsuri's diet in particular are Sakura mochi, which is this. She supposedly ate 170 of these per day for 8 months to get her pink hair. Well, I'm gonna have one with each meal. That's delightful. I've never had this before. I'm gonna need all the calories I can get because I'm working out quite a bit today because I really, really wanna be able to touch my fingers to the ground.
Now, the workouts during this entire series aren't as important as the stretching portion because my goal is to be able to touch my toes with a flat back. This entire series was honestly inspired by Mitsuri and the training that she does with the other Demon Slayers to get them incredibly flexible. But here's the thing: if I do not meet my goal and touch my toes by the end of this series, I'm going to buy you guys some movie tickets to go see the brand new Demon Slayer movie in theaters. All you have to do is head over to cookingwithchaos.gg and sign up for the newsletter. I'll be sending out a few gift cards so you guys can go see the brand new movie on me if I fail this challenge.
So 2 things. I need yoga straps and not this. And I have a very, very long way to go, but that's okay. A little by little should get me there. And if it doesn't, well, then you guys get something out of it. So cheer me on or don't cheer me on, whatever you want to do. Now it's time for some lunch.
But before lunch, I want to talk to you guys about recovery because it's incredibly important. Unless you've mastered total concentration breathing, real life aches, pains, and fatigues aren't something you can just fight off. And unfortunately, Shinobu might not be there to help you. That's exactly where today's sponsor, ZocDoc, comes in. Let's be honest, booking a real doctor's appointment is a task most of us don't want to do. It's like a demon walking out into sunlight. The dread of playing phone tag or sitting on hold sets in, and by the time you work up the courage, the next appointment is a month away and you're over it, and then you don't get checked up, which is not good. ZocDoc completely fixes that frustrating experience. It's a free marketplace that lets you search, compare, and instantly book local in-network doctors based entirely off of your preferences. They have over 150,000 providers across all 50 states, and you can read verified reviews in real time from real patients. You see actual open time slots and click book instantly, and most appointments do happen within 24 to 72 hours, and sometimes even same day. Look, your health matters, so stop putting it off. Clicking the link in my description is a massive step towards prioritizing your health. Head over to ZocDoc.com/ChefPK right now to get started and get that appointment off your to-do list. So that way, maybe you can go fight your own demons, whatever those might be. But right now, mine involve food.
One dish that became popular during the Taisho era of Japan, where Demon Slayer takes place, is actually omrice. I used to think that this dish came around the 50s and 60s, but it actually has earlier roots than that, which was really interesting to find out, especially because it's one of my favorite foods.
Now, like I mentioned earlier, during the Taisho era, we started to see a lot of cafes pop up that had Western influences. And in this case, curry rice is actually referred to as something called yoshoku. This is where there's a blend of both Western and Japanese flavors or styles to create an entirely new dish. Japanese curry is actually influenced from British curry, which is influenced from Indian curry. I love making omrice because you can kind of make it however you want.
Now I'm using ground chicken in mine, but you can use ground pork, ground beef, or what is more traditional is just cubed up chicken thigh. But since I had this ground chicken laying around, I'm just gonna add this into here. And if you don't want meat, you can throw in some tofu, or you can just make it with veggies. It's fine. Do whatever you want.
Since omrice was typically treated as a homemade meal that was made very casually and easily, rice right out of the steamer was perfectly fine for this recipe versus day-old rice, which would usually use for something like Chinese fried rice. A big component of omrice is ketchup. Ketchup was introduced to Japan around the late 1800s, but around the 1900s or the early 1900s, you could go to an international grocery store and find ketchup. Yoshoku-style restaurants did typically use a lot of Western-style ingredients like ketchup or curry. So seeing something like omrice, which is a blend of both Japanese and Western-style cuisine, use these ingredients, was something very new and fresh back then, but it's entirely common today. As someone who loves these flavors, I am so happy all of this came together. Even though I usually fail at making the omelet portion of omrice, I just try to give it my best shot.
This never works for me, so we're gonna see what this looks like, okay? Hey, not bad, not bad. I'm happy with that. That looks pretty good. Now, another food or dish that's extremely popular in Japan right now to this day is actually curry. Omrice traditionally would have ketchup sauce on top of this. Instead, I'm gonna be putting on some curry. And this curry actually comes from my very own infinite recipe card system, Cooking with Chaos. Cooking with Chaos is a collection of 60 different recipe cards, including this curry sauce that I just made for this omrice. On the front, you have a full description of all the ingredients you need for each recipe, plus a really awesome picture on the front. You get a difficulty rating explaining how hard this recipe is to make, how much time it takes, and then on the back is a full description of everything you need to do to make this recipe, plus an adventure. The best part is you get all 60 cards with every order. You get 20 different sauces, 20 different proteins, and 20 different sides. That way you can mix and match different proteins, sauces, and sides to get new dishes every single time. We also included a dice mechanic. This way you can roll a 20-sided die and each card has a corresponding number with it. So if you want a little bit of chaos in your kitchen, you can roll the die for each category and just make whatever the dice tells you to make. Head over to cookingwithchaos.gg at the link down below or on the QR code on screen. So head over to cookingwithchaos.gg and support us directly and this project because I truly think this can help people cook. The best part is for anyone who pre-orders right now, you're gonna get 3 exclusive free rice bowl expansion pack cards included in every box. So this way you can get a taste of what's to come. And now I can put our curry sauce on this omrice. I'm excited for this. This looks so good. Oh, just a little. And this, my friends, is lunch. A Taisho era omrice with curry sauce. This is extremely popular in Japan, and you can find this at places like Koko Curry and dozens of other omrice shops around the country. It's also one of my favorite dishes and one of my favorite ways of having fried rice or omrice. I think the thing that I'm most excited about with this series is accountability. I want to explore Taisho era foods, I want to celebrate Demon Slayer, and I want to improve myself every single week. It's very important to me, and I hope it's important to you. So cheers to lunch, and then I still have a lot to do before I have dinner, and there's still sword training, and I still promised the ribbon thing. Cheers. Oh, it's still super creamy, even though it was sitting for a few minutes. It's nice and spicy from that curry sauce. And the curry sauce, you can make as spicy or as mild as you would like. But to me, this is the perfect food. I could eat this 3 times a day and be happy. But this isn't the only thing I have to have for lunch. I still have to have my sakura mochi. Every meal, I get a sakura mochi. Imagine actually eating 170 of these a day. Cheers. You know, it's still really good. I'm gonna go take this down, let it digest, and then head back to training. Came back to the gym because I wanted to do this outside, but this is what the weather looks like.
Beloved Hashira Mitsuri is known for her incredible strength, speed, and agility. I am definitely not known for my strength, speed, or agility, but I'm going to give it my best. I think my biggest problem were the pants. No, I'm not even kidding. These pants had zero flexibility in them. I just wanted to try to practice my butterfly kick for what comes next.
Even though that's super fun, Mitsuri is actually known for her rhythmic gymnastics style of combat. And I did buy a rhythmic gymnastics ribbon, and I am probably going to offend every Olympian that does rhythmic gymnastics, but I'm at least going to try to have some fun. And this, we're gonna try to go outside. Now, before I eat Mitsuri's favorite meal that I did put together, and for every Demon Slayer, I'm going to be making their favorite meal in the form of a very special bento box. But I did also promise I would show you this thing. This is a professional rhythmic gymnastic ribbon. I reached out to 4 different schools here in Oregon, and every single one of them thought I was a weirdo because I asked them to teach me rhythmic gymnastics, but they only have like kids programs. So it would have been the 38-year-old, very hairy, scary looking man doing rhythmic gymnastics with small children. And they said no. So I have only practiced one move, and I will show you said move, and then I will enjoy the bento that I have made. Okay. I feel like the Star Wars lightsaber kid, only not as cool. And there's definitely someone else in the park, and this is good. This is so awkward. I hope they don't walk up. This is my move. Ready? It's right. Oh, it's so windy though. Look at it go! Look at it go! If anyone would like to teach me, I would love to learn. I think acquiring skills is very fun, and I try not to scare any children, so that's all I got. But now, I get to eat the bento and then deal with this guy sitting over here. He's been staring me down for a while now. In this bento box, I made Mitsuri's favorite dishes. Hers was a little bit different, and I want to share this with you. And for those of you who've been on the channel for a while, you'll notice that this bento box was the bento box I used for Yukihira's bento box way back in the day. This thing is awesome. Oh, can I even get it out? How do you use this? Oh, there's a zipper. This contains Mitsuri's favorite foods. Please don't fall. But I also have one more sakura mochi. This couldn't fit the bento, so I just kind of threw it in the thing. Okay. Now this is a 4-tiered bento box, which is really cool. In here, I have some toppings that I'm going to show you right now. It might give away what's in this bento, but I think it's really, really cool. First up is a bag of suyu. Yes, a bag of suyu. This is literally just plastic wrap with suyu poured in it. This is a bit of maple syrup. You know what this is for. Do I have to explain what the maple syrup is for? Because it also goes with this little dab of butter. This way I could fit the sauces and all the condiments I needed for this dish. In the next tier of this bento box, pancakes. Leftover pancakes from breakfast. Mitsuri loves her sweet. So when I made these pancakes, I also had in mind to make extra, so this way I can bring them along in my bento box. The next dish I'm actually really looking forward to. This is tamago yaki. Tamago yaki I've made quite a few times on the channel, and it's really, really easy gonna make. It's a dish I grew to absolutely love while I was out in Japan, and it's something that I make pretty often because it's also great for meal prep. But underneath it is some cold zaru soba. The reason why I went for cold zaru soba is because none of the other foods were really that hot. I did keep these slightly warm, but in this case, because she had so many different components, it would have been really hard to keep warm noodles in broth without them getting weird. There's the person that was watching me do the twirling, and now I feel really awkward, but it's okay. Also, Mitsuri out-ate every sumo wrestler at this soba restaurant when she was like 3 years old, and then she beat them in arm wrestling. The last piece of the puzzle is the always amazing, always delicious, electrolyte-filled miso soup. Just a good old miso soup. Oh, and it's still hot. You can see it steaming a little bit. Up top, that's so nice today, and it's starting to rain, so first things first, take your pancakes, soften the butter right on top. Then, because I'm an animal, I'm gonna take the maple syrup and just, you know, bite a little hole in that bag. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, that's good. That's good syrup. I'm gonna let the pancakes soak for just a little bit because I like mine to get a little soggy, which is weird, and then I'm gonna start eating everything else. For that suyu, I'm kind of doing the same thing. Just gonna bite a hole into it. Pour it straight into this dish. See that? Look at that, you gotta be a little creative sometimes. Now you take a little bit of your egg and you dip it in the suyu. It's one of my favorite things. A little suyu, a little bit of egg, green onions. Oh, having a meal outside in the winter is actually a treat. It's been raining all day, as you saw from earlier, and I took this chance to come out here and just get a little bit of outdoor time, and I think it's very important. There's my soba going straight into the suyu. I love buckwheat. This is fun. But it's also incredibly cold. Now for some pancake action. This is the weirdest bento I think I've made in a long time. But you know, Mitsuri, I'm not gonna argue with her. She'd destroy me. Absolutely crush my skull with her legs. Cheers. It's still good. Or it's not as warm as it was during breakfast, but that's still amazing. These pancakes still hold up incredibly well. Like the texture is still really nice. The color is still really nice. Oh, I'm making a mess. And that dude up there is not very happy. Yeah, in the trees? That guy? Yeah, that's who I have to deal with next. And you know what? I think I'm ready.
So make sure you get subscribed for the next episode, and remember, keep playing with your food.
拘束もしてない様に俺は頭痛がしてくるんだが。
But before I deal with the serpent hashira, I have to tell you how I got here.
Last week, I ate like Mitsuri Kanroji, the love hashira, and I took it upon myself to give me a personal challenge. That is to simply touch my toes by the end of this 8 weeks. Look, I'm getting older, and these things are important. So join me as I dive into the Taisho era foods that the Demon Slayers may have eaten during their time. And if I don't touch my toes by the end of the 8 weeks, well, I'm gonna buy you guys some movie tickets. I'll let you know how you can do that towards the end of this video.
Now, the serpent hashira is known for 3 things: his pinpoint accuracy with a sword, his coiling serpent-like strength, and his love for Mitsuri.
Now, our boy Obanai is a very simple person. The only time he overeats or eats anything extravagant is when he's with Mitsuri, but we're gonna talk about that later. For now, I'm gonna talk about what this is, Obanai's favorite food, Tororo kombu. It's actually just Tororo kombu, but it sounds fun when you say it like the JoJo way. Anyways, I've never actually cooked with this before. I've never had this before. I didn't know this existed, Gandalf, until I discovered Obanai's favorite food. Tororo kombu. This is not for you. This is seaweed marinated in vinegar. Oh, that's strong. Here, you can smell. You can smell. Smell. Yeah, see, you don't like that. This smells like salt and vinegar chips. Look at that. It almost looks like textured paper or some kind of a material. That's really interesting. Hold on, we're gonna try this. It's not bad. It's not my favorite. We're gonna make it for breakfast. Let's see what happens. Now I'm choosing to use soba noodles for this, or buckwheat noodles. Buckwheat noodles were actually established way before the timeline of Demon Slayer, back in around the 1600s of Japan. But the reason why I'm picking soba noodles is because it ties into Obanai's personality more than any other noodle. It's a noodle that can be enjoyed on its own or with other ingredients like this marinated tofu that I'm going to make with a very secret sauce. It's not really a secret. I've used this teriyaki sauce recipe
so many times on the channel. And so while you can find that recipe for free on the channel, I've also included it in Cooking with Chaos, my brand new infinite recipe card system. Cooking with Chaos is a collection of 60 different modular recipes, which means you can mix and match different recipe cards to get new meals every single time. And I have to talk about this quick because these noodles are almost done. Gandalf, please don't eat this tofu. You get 20 different proteins, 20 different side cards, which are the green ones, and 20 different sauces, which are the blue cards. You can take something like the meatball recipe card, which has all of the ingredients on the front and all of the ingredients on the back with macronutrients included on the bottom if you want to be healthy or you just want to keep count. Okay, these are almost done. I gotta be quick. So if you're feeling frisky, you can try the meatball card and combine it with the tzatziki sauce card, which is probably fantastic. I actually haven't tried that one yet. So if you pre-order this today at the link down below, you can try out that combination and then let me know how it tastes. I want to know.
Now that you've ordered Cooking with Chaos and these soba noodles are done, all I have to do is strain them and run them under some cold water. You can have these hot if you really want to, but I'm gonna have them slightly room temperature. Now the tofu is really easy to cook. I just take all the tofu with the marinade included, throw it into a pan and add some additional marinade to make sure that the marinade gets completely soaked into the tofu. This just gets cooked down until that marinade starts to caramelize, and you want to pull this off right before it burns. Once the tofu is cooked, it should have this really beautiful dark caramel color. Now the dipping liquid for soba is traditionally just a suyu with a bit of dashi. So in this case, I've already pre-made some dashi and I'm adding a bit of suyu just to taste. I'm finishing it off with some fresh green onions, making sure Gandalf doesn't get any.
Now, one method I had seen with the torororo combo is that you can take, no Gandalf, you already know what this is. You don't like it. It smells like vinegar. You already know. You already, Cat. Oh my God, Cat. What do you do? This is not okay. This is now not okay. Yeah. You're being a monster. So one method that I've seen is you can take the kombu and soak it in your suyu broth. This way, it immediately gets, Gandalf, you've already seen this 1,000 times now. It gets to this like slimy texture that it just reminds me of natto from the Blue Lock diet. So I'm always open to trying new things. So we're gonna see how this tastes. I'm actually pretty curious and I think it's gonna be good.
Now, because Obanai is a very simple person who likes simple things, I'm plating up not all of the soba. That's a ridiculous amount of soba. That amount of soba is only meant for Mitsuri. Next to the soba, I'm going to plate up all of that marinated cooked tofu, followed by one nicely boiled egg. You can skip the egg if you don't want it, but I like egg with my breakfast. And this is breakfast that Obanai may have had during the Taisho era of Japan.
So during my research to live like Obanai, I came across a lot of information that says he likes very simple things. And to me, one of those really simple and easy things, as far as Taisho era Japan goes, is just some soba noodles and a little bit of broth. I'm gonna pick up some of that torororo kombu with it and give it a taste. It's my first time trying this, so cheers. You know what? The texture actually isn't that bad. Even though this looks super sus, I actually really like this. This tastes very nice. It's like super vinegary, then it's salty and sweet from the teriyaki sauce we had made. The biggest reason why he likes to have the lighter meals is because he doesn't like to feel weighed down when he's training. And honestly, I think this is a perfect meal right before any intense training, which we're gonna go do. Yeah, okay, here we go.
Obanai is known for his precision strikes and pinpoint accuracy, so I'm going to try to do a little bit of Hashira style training today before I head to the gym.
What I think is really cool about this approach to week 2 of my Hashira training is that I can take things a little bit slower, which is nice, versus when I did all of the Hashira trainings in a single day.
Now, Obanai is known for his swordsmanship, in particular his pinpoint strikes that can actually bend around corners and turns. So what I'm trying to do for today is to pretend that I'm doing coiling serpent style training. This sounds really awkward, but all I'm really doing is making sure that my movements are very slow, very low, and very coiled up. I'm just glad that my breakfast wasn't too heavy today because I decided to try some butterfly kicks and some lower movements before I went to the gym.
So I don't actually know if Obanai would ever do any kind of weight training, but I assume he would have because he trained with the stone Hashira.
So luckily today is push day, which means we're going to be doing legs again. I feel like I should focus more on the stretching, but I'm going to be stretching later today.
Doing all the Hashira and sword training before the gym, maybe it's not the move.
I ended up getting a full set of Hashira style training if I were training with Guillaume, but just without the rocks. Today I was focusing on a lot of lower body and upper body, which is pretty typical for my day-to-day activity. But there's two problems with today so far. I'm actually pretty sore from my sword training and my coiling serpent training, and also I smell horribly. These pants, they don't breathe. I'm at the gym. I'm trying to avoid people so they can't smell me. It's just all bad. And on top of that, I am nowhere near touching my toes.
So that's second training of the day done. Now it's time for second meal of the day, and I'm so excited to eat. I'm actually pretty hungry because breakfast, while it was light, wasn't incredibly filling, and I want to stuff my face.
You know what I've come to really appreciate about OpenEye is that, yes, I've already done my sword training, I've had breakfast, went to the gym, and now I get to make a fairly easy post-workout meal. It's also gonna have a little bit of caffeine, which is kind of nice because I still have stretching and we still have to make dinner, and there's kind of a lot going on with this series, and I still haven't gotten anywhere near my toes. That's okay, you know, we're eating good food, we're having a good time. All you can ask for these days. We're gonna get into it.
Now, one of OpenEye's favorite foods is actually ochazuke. Ochazuke was introduced in the Heian period, and it was basically cold or hot water poured over leftover rice. But in the Edo period, thanks to agriculture and trade, tea was more readily available for the commoners as well. So instead of using cold or hot water, people started using cold or hot tea on top of leftover rice. Now, this ochazuke in particular is also going to get some marinated tilapia. And the marinade that I'm using is actually the leftover dipping sauce I had used during breakfast. So this actually has a ton of that leftover vinegared seaweed in it. And cooking this is really easy. I'm starting off in a medium hot pan and just putting the fish and all of the marinade into the pan. Normally you would be grilling this maybe over open coal or fire, but instead I'm doing it in a saute pan because I don't have open fire or coals. The fish doesn't take too long to cook, and what's great about this is that it's a fairly common topping on ochazuke. By the Taisho era, this was considered a comfort food, and because it's so simplistic in its ingredients and execution, I can see why someone like OpenEye would love this.
Normally you would just put this like on top of your tea glass or your mug and it would filter, but I didn't do that.
The tea that I elected to use for this is a genmaika, or a roasted brown rice tea. This blend in particular does have a little bit of green tea in it for that caffeine boost. I'm topping this off with some furikake, which is a beautiful rice seasoning, and then throwing the fish right on top of that rice. I'm finishing this off with some more of that torororo kombu, raw and right out of the bag.
Ganelf, it's still just, it's the vinegar seaweed. You don't like this. Sometimes I think he's a smart cat. And this is a pretty simple lunch that OpenEye might have when he's eating with Mitsuri. That's a very strong thing, distinction. Words are hard for me. He normally wouldn't have this much food, but a lot of the research I had seen shown that he had eaten more when he was eating with Mitsuri. So for example, in this scene when they're at whatever restaurant this is, you can see Mitsuri has like a ton of bowls in front of her and he kind of has just one larger bowl. Normally he wouldn't eat that way, but because he wants to make Mitsuri feel very special, because she is best girl in all of Demon Slayer, he goes for something a little more substantial. And granted, even though this looks like a lot of food, the 1.5 cups of rice is about 400 calories. A piece of tilapia is maybe 150 calories, and then the sauces and the garnishes are negligible. So really, this is maybe like 600 calories worth of food. So it looks like a lot, but it's not actually very calorically dense. Now I'll stop talking and I'm gonna try this with the torororo kombu, a bit of rice, some of that beautifully like soaked in soupy kind of tea thing going on now. Cheers. Hold on, that's fantastic. It's actually very subtle in its flavors. The fish is slightly like cooked and braised in that sauce that we had used. And the torororo kombu is not that strong. It just kind of gives it a nice vinegary flavor. It's a little bit salty from the marinade, which is really beautiful. The rice itself is just perfect. I'm glad I'm eating this before my stretching training because I don't feel like it'll be too heavy. But now I have to go try to touch my toes. And that's been futile so far.
This is one of the most painful things I've ever done as a stretch. Dear Lord.
While this does help me with my flexibility, I'm relying on Lucian to keep me company.
This is basically Mitsuri's main stretch that she uses to torture all of the other Demon Slayers.
And because I am not flexible at all, I have to use a chair to help me out, and that still barely got the job done. I am very lucky that OpenEye has a very easy, gentle diet that he likes to enjoy, so that way any of the excess training isn't affected by a very full stomach.
We did it. All five of the things, all 5 of them have been completed in one day, and I have severe regrets.
But one regret I don't have is that I've already made dinner.
Now, one thing that I'm really trying to do throughout this entire series, other than touch my toes and live like a Demon Slayer, is to always have dinner outside. Now the weather isn't that great, but I found this really cute gazebo in my local neighborhood, so I can have dinner here. And dinner is in my custom-made Demon Slayer bento box. This is something that I had created in honor of Obanai because it still uses one of his favorite foods, which is that torororo kombu. But I had also used a few methods I had learned from Food Wars. This was pretty easy to make, and honestly, you could try this at home relatively quickly.
Since this dish is mostly an original idea I had come up with, it's not truly a Taisho specific dish, but I also think it's something that Obanai would enjoy because of its simplicity and its very limited ingredients. I'm soaking some tororo kombu with some Cooking with Chaos teriyaki sauce and just a little bit of water to dilute it so it's not super strong. This only takes a few minutes for that kombu to get fully soaked with that beautiful teriyaki sauce mixture we had made. Now the next part is going to be a beautiful piece of sashimi grade salmon. I know a lot of you may think, why are you wasting your time using sashimi grade salmon for this seared salmon? It's because I want to give you the option. You can sear sashimi grade salmon to a nice, very rare salmon, or you can have this raw. But because I'm going to be putting the salmon on top of hot rice, I did want to sear it just a little bit. Now in the bento, I'm layering a hefty amount of rice. And this is a technique that I learned from Food Wars where Yukihira had made this bento box that had a layer of nori in between the rice. But in this case, I'm taking the soaked tororo kombu and placing it on top of that first layer of rice. And then I'm taking a second thinner layer of rice and placing it directly on top of the kombu. This does two things. It gives a ton of flavor to the rice and it protects the fish from the kombu. I'm also adding a bit more furikake for a ton of seasoning. And then as a bonus, I'm throwing in a bit of umeboshi or a pickled plum. This is just for extra flavor and you can leave it out if you don't have it. Finally, I'm slicing up this sashimi grade salmon and placing it directly on top of the seasoned rice. This only has a few ingredients, but I promise the flavor here is going to be insane. And of course, I'm finishing it off with some fresh green onions because I love fresh green onions on everything.
This is dinner after a very, very long day. Have I reached my goal of touching my toes? No. Did I have fun today? Yes. Did I eat good food? Yes. I'll take 2 wins. Now I'm gonna take a massive bite of everything because this should have the salmon, the torororo stuff in the middle, and all the seasoning right on top. So cheers to another week of demon slayering, whatever. Oh wow, look at the kombu that's in there. Nice and layered in between the rice. It's actually incredibly tasty. It's salty, it's a little sweet, it's a little sour. It has a surprisingly good texture. And with the salmon, adding the fattiness and the creaminess, look at that salmon. It's perfect. It's just so delicate. I didn't think this was gonna work, and it's fantastic. But now the problem is, I gotta deal with that guy.
Judging by the looks of you, you're useless.
Sanemi's right. The toes aren't going to touch themselves, are they?
With 2 weeks of Demon Slayer training down, it's now on to week 3 with Sanemi the Wind Hashira.
I turned 39 this year and I have no flexibility. I want to change that.
Over the last 3 weeks, I've eaten like Mitsuri and Obanai from Demon Slayer. Now it's time to take on Sanemi the Wind Hashira. I'm going to be making and eating some of his favorite foods, as well as going through his Hashira style training. This way I can try to touch my toes so I don't have to buy you guys movie tickets.
So welcome to episode 3 of Living Like a Demon Slayer. And it all starts with the morning routine.
And the morning routine involves making ohagi, one of Sanemi's favorite foods.
Well, this is awkward. Okay, look, I know it's strange that I'm out here at a beach. A Demon Slayer never stops training, especially Sanemi. So since I had the opportunity to come down to California, I figure I may as well enjoy the beach for today's full day of eating like Sanemi from Demon Slayer. And the best part, I already fueled my body with his favorite food, bota mochi, otherwise known as ohagi.
Ohagi is a traditional Japanese sweet made of glutinous rice, which is a little bit different than normal steamed white rice. It's slightly sweet and a bit more starchy, which holds its shape really well. This dish is usually just 2 ingredients, the steamed rice and some red bean paste, because that is Sanemi's preference. What I found really interesting when researching this is that the dish is named after hagi, otherwise known as the autumn bush clover. Historically, this dish is actually to remember the dead. It's a simple and humble dish that has very deep and significant roots in Japan. But for Sanemi, whose life has kind of been marked by loss and guilt, ohagi isn't just a dessert for him. It's more of a memory. It's a link to the family he couldn't save, and this might explain why he's always pushing Genya away, maybe to keep him out of danger. I find it really interesting that Sanemi would rather eat to remember grief and pain versus eating to remember joy and happiness. Everyone grieves in different ways, and if this is his way of dealing with it, it's something I can get behind. What I can't get behind is that I had to eat these at the airport and I forgot to record me eating it, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. I even got some additional stretching in while I waited for my flight.
But the problem is, it's been 3 weeks, and this is as far as I've gotten. Closer, but not close enough.
I took this opportunity to practice with my 3-sectional staff at the beach because I could actually smack into the ground without hurting any flooring at the gym. I had told myself that if Sanemi actually had a Bankai, it would absolutely be this weapon because it most represents a windmill, and since he's the wind Hashira, I thought it was pretty fitting. But this doesn't really help me reach my goal of touching my toes.
Honestly, this is probably one of my favorite ways to work up an appetite. And now for lunch, I get to have one of my favorite Japanese dishes. And I say favorite, but like, I love almost all Japanese food, but this one in particular, this hits different. But there's just one thing I'm so compelled to do this. I just have to do this. There's one more thing. Okay, there's people watching. Let's go get lunch.
Now, one thing about this entire journey is that I don't have a kitchen to make curry in, so I'm headed over to Mitsuwa, an amazing Japanese grocery store that also has a Kinokuniya bookstore in it. Kinokuniya is known for their variety of manga, especially Japanese and English manga. So I wanted to find a copy of volume 23 for Demon Slayer. Mitsuwa also has a full food court. Not only do they have Japanese food, but they have other varieties of food as well. But one food that I really started to gravitate towards was this backwards sign restaurant. And no, it's not backwards, I just filmed it incorrectly. This place had a ton of wonderful looking chicken teriyaki and chicken curry bowls. I decided I wanted curry again for lunch, and yes, I know I had it for Mitsuri, but it's amazing. The curry that I ordered was a chicken teriyaki curry. I've never had that.
Curry was technically introduced to Japan around 1870 during the Meiji era, but it was made popular during the Taisho era, which is when Demon Slayer actually takes place.
Now, I have made curry quite a few times on the channel, and it's one of my favorite things to make because not only is it delicious, but it's relatively simple to prepare. You can also make this in bulk, so that way you can have curry throughout the week, or you can even make the curry roux ahead of time and freeze it so you can have this whenever you want. Japanese curry is very interesting though because it layers lots of flavors.
Sanemi loves to fuel his body with plenty of protein, and this bowl of food comes with a lot of it.
This particular bowl of chicken teriyaki curry that I had ordered probably had close to 50 or 60 grams of protein because of the massive amounts of chicken thigh and egg into this curry. Whenever I make Japanese curry at home, I absolutely meal prep everything. So things are done a little bit differently than a traditional Japanese curry, but I will admit it is one of the best ways to make it.
I even got an extra egg for extra protein because Sanemi is pretty ripped.
If you've never made or had Japanese curry before, I'll leave a link in the description with a full tutorial.
If you have Uzui on one side, who's just super buff and super tall and incredibly handsome, you have Sanemi, our short buff king. He's basically, oh my god, he's Vegeta. I didn't realize how hungry I was, so I'm gonna take down this entire meal, and then I have my mobility training, because I need to touch my toes. The whole point of this. I keep getting lost in the sauce and just wanting to eat a bunch of food, but I gotta remember, I gotta touch my toes.
I gotta say, I never realize how tight my body is until I start doing these things, and I actually love these new movements because you can do them anywhere. There's always space for movement, and there's always space for food. Like this bento, hold on, let me show you. I got this from Mitsuwa after I had eaten that amazing curry from earlier, and it is broiled mackerel, a Saba bento. This is one of Sanemi's favorite foods. Let me explain.
Grilled mackerel, known as Saba Shioyaki, isn't flashy like our boy Tengen, but I think that's the reason why Sanemi loves this food. It's rough around the edges like him and a little bit intense for a lot of people, just like Sanemi, but for him, it might just taste like home. Japan went through a crazy amount of modernization and industrialization during the Meiji and Taisho eras. There were actually more people working outside of their home, and so bento culture kind of evolved. You might have some really elaborate bentos, something like Uzui might eat, but then you have things like the Saba or the mackerel bento for people who are just hard at work. Grilled mackerel has always been a staple in the Japanese diet, so it's obvious to see these evolve into ekibens or train station bentos. Sanemi kind of has this lone wolf mentality that makes him maybe gravitate towards simpler foods so they don't get in the way of his training. Mackerel is loaded with protein, is lower in fat, and is pretty readily available. And to this day, grilled mackerel is a staple of the Japanese diet.
But now the problem with this bento is I don't have any utensils. I forgot to get chopsticks or a fork. Maybe some kind person around here has a fork. I'm gonna go see if I can find one.
Now, the second part of my day does involve some movement flexibility training. This is slightly different than just standing in place and stretching because I do have to move throughout my stretches, and it really does feel good in a lot of bad ways. Especially the Instagram pose where you have to lock one knee and put one knee out and kind of push your butt out. That one hurts, but it feels really good. I would have loved to have seen Sanemi train with Mitsuri and do her Hashira style training because apparently the Hashiras had to train with each other so they could get stronger, better, faster. Could you imagine Sanemi actually trying all the stretchers or being in a leotard? I would have literally paid for that. But since no one is paying to sponsor this video, I figured I would sponsor myself.
Are you tired of flipping through huge cookbooks?
I know, and my hands in the pages get so sticky. Don't worry, I have the solution. You need Cooking with Chaos, the brand new infinite recipe card system that lets you mix and match different cards to make a new meal every single time. Just combine a protein, sauce, and side card to make new dinners every single time. Wow, that's rad! What does this number do? That's the D20 mechanic. All you have to do is roll a 20-sided die for each category and make a new dinner every time. Don't get stuck in the past and start Cooking with Chaos today.
Pre-order today for a special first edition with bonus cards. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to cookingwithchaos.gg today.
Now, let's find this plastic fork.
Hey there. I actually just grabbed this from you. I mostly needed a plastic fork, so I figured if that's okay. Thank you.
This lady that helped me out was super sweet, so all I had to do was buy this bubbly water, and she actually gave me a fork so I could eat my lunch. Alternatively, I could have eaten my lunch with my hands, which is very common around the world, but the problem is I really wanted to eat my lunch out here on the sand. I'm not in Southern California that often, so I figured let's take advantage of walking across the longest, widest beach on the planet to try to eat this food. And you know what's gonna happen? I'm gonna get attacked by birds. Why did I decide to get some fish and bring it out to the sand? It doesn't make any sense, but what does make sense is how beautiful this view is. The reason why I walked out here is because there was no one here.
So I was able to secure a plastic fork, and it only cost me this $6 sparkling water. So, you know, this is what I get for forgetting my utensil at the restaurant. But I'm also rewarded with kind of an amazing bento outside. One of my goals for this entire thing was to eat outside every dinner. And the reason for that is that I actually live in Oregon. I live in the Northwest. I actually don't go outside often because the weather is horrible. So being able to just go outside, touch sand, grass, whatever, feels good. So that's been a big goal. Have I touched my toes yet? No. It takes time. A lot of things that are worth it in life do take time. So for me to be able to go on this journey and enjoy this food and be inspired by anime, which I don't think is talked about often enough. I think a lot of us watch anime and just kind of consume it. And for some people, it really hits home. And for some people, it makes them try things they hadn't tried before. And in my case, I'm using Demon Slayer to be able to improve an aspect of my life that I've forgotten about. And honestly, it's part of my body's health. So I'm gonna enjoy it as much as I can. Now, unfortunately, this mackerel is very cold. Sanemi would just go to town on this, you know, it's basically pure protein. It's actually really tender, comes right off of that bone. That's just a nice piece of fish. I'm probably gonna get attacked by the birds, but that's what I get for eating out here. Oh, that's surprisingly delicious. Oh my God. That is just like, it's so tender and so flaky. Has a little bit of saltiness to it. Maybe they cooked it with some suyu. That's beautiful. How is this only $9? Just falls right apart. I also bought a freshly baked anpan. This is filled with red bean paste, the same style of red bean paste I used on the ohagi mochi that I'd made for breakfast. Maybe secretly, Sanemi doesn't mind Mitsuri because Mitsuri loves red bean paste. Oh, this thing is just filled to the brim. Look at that. The pastry is nice and flaky. Red bean paste is actually not too sweet, and the pastry itself has a little like butteriness to it. That's fantastic. I'm gonna finish the rest of my dinner to finish off week 3 of my Demon Slayer training, and then I have to deal with that guy.
Make sure you get subscribed for the next episode, and remember, keep playing with your food.
Today I'm going to eat and train like one of my favorite Demon Slayers, Rengoku.
For the last 4 weeks, I've been trying to eat like the Hashiras from Demon Slayers for one very particular reason. I'm using Demon Slayers to get myself motivated to touch my toes before my 39th birthday and before the release of Infinity Castle.
I have a long way to go, and I hope the Flame Hashira can help me.
And he enjoys something I've never actually had before. I'm going to be having it for breakfast. Now, according to lore, this is actually Rengoku's favorite meal, even though we see him eating so many gyudon bento boxes in Mugen Train. It's relatively simple to make, it's super cheap, and it's incredibly filling while being very nutritious. It involves a good helping of white rice, and in this case, I'm using about 2 or 3 cups, plus 1 massive sweet potato. And this is actually not the right thing. I definitely think I bought the wrong sweet potato. This is actual sweet potato, not a yam. That's okay. We're gonna get through this.
I promise.
Now, sweet potatoes and yams are very different vegetables. Sweet potatoes tend to be a little more starchy and hold up well for this type of cooking, but yams are a little more creamy and slightly sweeter than sweet potatoes. Normally, when you go out to eat, you might eat something like sweet potato fries, and those are actually deep fried yams and not sweet potatoes. The reason why people love those instead is because they do look nicer. This is neither here nor there. I'm just saying I bought the wrong potato and it's going to work out just the same for me. After peeling and dicing the potato, you put it on top of the rice and throw it in the rice cooker. Now it's time to deal with the protein of the day. Now, hold on. This isn't actually sea bream because I couldn't find sea bream anywhere. This is actually black cod, which I really enjoy, and it's not quite the same, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. At least we're making the potato rice. Now, I do have to keep this relatively simple because I don't think Rengoku would have added anything extravagant to this dish, mostly based on his emotions from eating all of those delicious bento boxes during Mugen Train. Rengoku seems like a very simple warrior, so I'm only cooking this fish with a little bit of salt, and yes, I'm using butter because there are Western influences in the Taisho era during this time, but more than likely, this would have just been grilled over some open fire. I love searing black cod skin side down, flipping it, and finishing it in the oven for a few minutes. By now, the steamed rice with potatoes should be done, and don't grab it like this. This is a stupid thing to do. I'm not the flame Hashira. I can't hold hot things with my bare hands. Now, you do have to mix up the potato into the rice so it's evenly incorporated. If you do decide to use yams and not sweet potatoes, remember those are the orange and golden ones versus these white ones, be more careful when mixing up the rice because yams are a lot softer than sweet potatoes. After I plate up that massive amount of sweet potato rice, I'm placing my fish right on top. There legitimately isn't a better breakfast for any warrior.
This is Rengoku's favorite meal. Rice with sweet potato and a bit of fish right on top. What's interesting is that Rengoku is a fiery character for lack of a better term, but he loves to express his love for food. What I find interesting about this is that it's a very simple looking dish. It's very, very easy to make. So I wonder if this is actually something maybe his mom made for him. So it just has a bunch of memories associated with this style dish. It looks really comforting. It seems like something he would love to have on a rainy day like this, and I can't wait to try this. I feel like this is just gonna put me back to bed. You know, sometimes that's okay. Cheers. Look at this bite. That is a nice looking bite. I'm definitely cheating a little bit though, and I've jabbed the fish with my chopsticks, but what are you gonna do? Oh wow. I know it's so simple, but the creaminess of that sweet potato accompanied by the rice makes the rice taste very creamy, which is something I didn't expect. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh my God. I'm not even exaggerating. I love this. I had gone into this thinking that this is just gonna be potato and rice, but the combination of the two does taste very different than I actually had anticipated. It adds a nice sweetness to the rice, which is really, really welcoming. And that little bit of salt does help kind of flavor everything. And the fish itself is also very good, but it's not as impressive as the potato rice. That's fantastic. This is definitely a comforting dish. Even for me, who's never had this before, it just kind of warms your soul a little bit, just like Rengoku did in Mugen Train until... This is a fantastic start to the day and it's kind of getting me hyped up to go and do everything else I need to do today, which includes 2 more meals for Rengoku, but also trying to touch my toes because if I don't, well, I have to buy you guys movie tickets, and let me explain how.
If I don't touch my toes before Infinity Castle starts, I'm going to be buying some of you guys movie tickets to go see Infinity Castle. All you have to do is head over to cookingwithchaos.gg and sign up for the newsletter. That's it. Not only will you be entered for a chance to receive some free movie tickets, but you're going to get some free cards emailed directly to you from Cooking with Chaos. I'll talk more about Cooking with Chaos later on in the video. For now, I have to get to the gym to work off this insane amount of carbs I just ate.
I don't know what this is, but it feels like a Hashira weapon.
Now, because I am helping my shoulder recover, I don't want to go too intense with a lot of the exercises today, and I'm really just focusing on open stretches and really getting a lot of movement in so I can try to touch my toes. I feel like I am so close by using this weight to help me elongate my hamstrings, but honestly, I'm not that close. It's like they say, losing the first bit of weight is usually easy, and losing the last like 10 pounds is the most difficult, and I feel like getting those last few inches to get towards my toes is going to be the hardest thing. But I also don't want to just focus on that. I'm making sure that I open up the hips because yes, I have hip and back problems because I'm getting old.
So I'm not actually going to be doing any sword training, even though it's Rengoku Day, mostly because I do have to nurse this shoulder just a little bit. So doing the overhead swings might impact that. So I'm going to take it just a little bit easy today. And then I get to have my lunch, which I'm really looking forward to.
I still got a little bit of weight training in today, but nothing too intense. Mostly some machines and some easier exercises just to help get back in the swing of things and hopefully get over this shoulder injury. Because remember, movement equals healing. Now for lunch, I am going to be making something special. This was a dish that Rengoku was eating during Mugen Train, but not during the Mugen Train movie. It was actually shown on the re-release over on Crunchyroll, where they had added one extra episode before the events of Mugen Train. He's sitting down in a restaurant and he decided to have kakiyage served up with some soba. But instead of having soba noodles, we are going to be having it with our beautiful sweet potato rice. If you've never actually had kakiyage before, it's relatively simple to make and you can use it with almost any vegetables you have laying around. In this case, I have some more of that sweet potato as well as some carrots and zucchini that I'm going to be using with this, in addition to some onion that I have later on. The goal for making kakiyage is to get everything to be relatively the same size. The reason for that is because we are going to deep fry this. So if you have things that are uneven in size or length, you're going to end up undercooking or overcooking other vegetables. Kakiyage technically originated in the Edo period, which was quite a bit of time before the events of Demon Slayer. It was invented as a way for street vendors to use up any extra vegetables or any extra meat scraps they may have had laying around, so this way they can turn a little bit of a profit on something they may have not sold. But in this case, I'm using leftover fresh vegetables that I had purchased, as well as a little bit of tempura flour. The tempura flour is really important for throwing directly on top of the raw vegetables to help getting the batter to stick to the vegetables. You typically don't want to just make a batter and throw it into the vegetables because then it might run off and not stick properly. Another big trick for making tempura batter is to use ice water. The ice water helps the batter get nice and crispy when it's deep fried. The other thing you want to do when making tempura batter is make sure that the batter looks like runny vanilla ice cream before you start using it. This is what my kakiyage looks like after I throw in a little bit of batter on top of those dredged vegetables. Now the next part is pretty important, I think, and that's taking some of your vegetable mixture and placing it on top of squares of parchment. This is going to make it super easy to shallow fry in this pan. This helps keeps the kakiyage together versus drifting apart as it deep fries. You also want to make sure you don't overcrowd the pan. If you do overcrowd the pan, you have a chance of the kakiyage not cooking evenly. After about a minute or so, you can actually remove that parchment paper from the kakiyage because now it's being held together by the batter. This only takes a few minutes on each side to get nice and golden brown. And remember, you don't want to overcook this because it can burn very easily. After a few minutes of cooking on both sides, I'm just removing the kakiyage from the oil and placing it onto a rack to allow any excess oil to drip off. You can see how amazing this is as a street food. It's easy to make, it's relatively cheap, it can be very filling, and it can be incredibly tasty.
The last time I had kakiyage was actually when I was in Tokyo and I was eating it at an udon restaurant where you could pick it up as kind of a buffet style where you go down the line and pick the tempura product you want. And a lot of the time I would pick up kakiyage and shrimp tempura because I loved it. Rengoku also loved eating this, man. That guy, he's after my own heart. What's great about kakiyage is that you don't just have to do vegetables. If you want to put in some shellfish or some really thinly sliced pork, you can do that as well. I think it amps up the flavor a ton, and honestly, this is really easy to make once you kind of know the method. And on top of that, you can impress a few friends or waifus, husbandos. Cheers. Oh baby, look at the inside of that. That is beautifully cooked, nice and tender. The vegetables are cooked all the way throughout, nice and crispy on the outside, but still really tender in the center, and that's what you want. You don't actually want this to be crispy all the way through. I think if you make it crispy all the way through, one of two things are gonna happen. It's gonna be burned or it's going to be burned. I actually like breaking this apart. I'm gonna rip this open a little bit. Look at just how hot and bothered that is. That is so nice looking. On top of that, the suyu is actually used for soba quite a bit. It's so good. It goes so well with this. Oh, baby. I actually wasn't hungry when I was making this because I was still so full from breakfast, but man, that got me excited. A little bit of the sweet potato rice as well to chase it. I can see why Rengoku loved this, especially with the Japanese chili flake. That stuff just amps it up and gives it a nice spiciness, and why you can still find this all throughout Japan. Admittedly though, lunch is a little bit smaller because I still have my afternoon stretching to get in because I really want to do this. I'm getting older and my goal is to still try to touch my toes and be more flexible before my 39th birthday. So I'm gonna take this down, I'm gonna start my next training session, and then I have a special one for dinner.
Because I skipped out on sword training today, I figured I'd get another round of stretching in, this time focusing on lighter movements and not going through my entire stretching process like I did at the gym. But the best part about stretching at home is stretching with cats. Lucian doesn't get a lot of screen time because he just doesn't care about the food as much, but he's always curious as to what I'm doing when I'm on the floor. I did a few more minutes of stretching while trying to get Lucian's attention and he wanted nothing of it. So now it's time for the final test of the day to see how close I've gotten to my toes.
I'm so close, but my back is rounded, which is not part of what I want to do. My back has to be completely straight. Oh, look at that. I'm not even can't even see me now. I guess it's time for dinner. I'm excited for this one. Hopefully you are too. Let's go. We're going to go over here and get dinner now. Lucian really didn't want to be on camera today. I don't know. Gandalf loves, well, he doesn't love being on camera. He just loves to eat. Lucian, say hi. Say hi, buddy. Say hi. Who's your favorite Hashira? It's Mid-City, isn't it? Because she has all the I think it's Mid-City. Go, be free.
Now, the interesting part about the Taisho era and when Demon Slayer takes place is that there's actually a lot of reform in not only the government, but by the people themselves. Oh God, that hurts getting up. I find this era of Japan fascinating because we see a lot of Westernization happening and Japan embracing Western culture in multiple ways, and that does include the food. But for dinner, I have to make Rengoku's favorite thing, well, maybe favorite thing because he ate like 30 of them in Mugen Train, his favorite thing, gyudon. And I actually got a special treat today because some friends of mine at Awajimaya, which is, yes, a grocery store here in the Portland area, gifted me this beautiful American Reserve Wagyu style beef. I had this on my second channel where I basically just cook. There's no anime or video games involved, and it's delicious. It's not A5 Wagyu, so it's not as fatty or rich, but it has an amazing flavor and it's super affordable. So I'm gonna be using this for the gyudon because may as well treat yourself. Now, there are two reasons why I'm making it with this beef. One, it was gifted to me, so I didn't actually pay for it. And two, because I've never had it this way before. This is a very non-traditional style of gyudon. If you want the Rengoku gyudon that I've made quite a few times on the channel and is featured in my cookbook Annie Bites, I'm going to leave a link for the video and the book down below. But in this case, I do have to cook the gyudon a bit differently because you can't cook this Wagyu in that gyudon sauce. If you do, you're going to end up overcooking the beef and it's going to be a waste of the Wagyu. So instead, I'm actually going to sear the beef in the pan with a bit of the onions for some flavor, and the only seasoning I'm using here is a little bit of salt. Now, once those onions have softened up very lightly, I'm moving them to the side just to get access to the beef. This beef only needs to sear for a few minutes before I remove it from the heat, because remember, it's Wagyu and it doesn't need to be cooked that long. One of the most interesting things about gyudon is not the dish itself, but a bit of the history. During the Meiji Restoration era, 1868 to about 1912, Japan did start opening itself up to more Western cultures, one of them being the use of beef. Like I mentioned earlier, during the Mitsuri diet, we started to see more butters, creams, and milks used in Japanese cooking during the Taisho era because of Western influences. You even had restaurants like Yoshinoya, which opened up in 1899, popularized fast food gyudon. I've eaten at many Yoshinoyas and I can absolutely say it is delicious for the price and how fast it is. By the Taisho era, when Demon Slayer takes place, gyudon actually became a fast food. You could find it in train stations, railways, and you can find it in bento boxes on trains. This is why Rengoku was so excited to eat so many of them. He had probably never seen this before in his life until he had had that gyudon. Gyudon to me is a staple in the Japanese diet. Not only is it delicious, but it can be had as fast food or elevated to make it an amazing meal. And there it is, a Wagyu gyudon. Now, admittedly, I don't think you should really make gyudon with Wagyu just because it's a nicer cut of meat. Doesn't necessarily need to be braised or anything like that. Usually you're just gonna sear it and eat it as is, but I really wanted to try it like this. I've never had it like this, and because it was gifted to me, I figured may as well try it today, especially in honor of Rengoku, because he is also one of my favorites, besides Uzui, who I have to worry about later. You know, I've definitely felt off all week, but I'm glad I'm trying to stick to this because it's something that I really want to do, and I hope I can accomplish it with you. Cheers. Oh, that steak is so good. It's nice and fatty and rich, but I also think it could have used a little more either soy sauce because it wasn't fully cooked in the soy sauce, or just another pinch of salt. That flavor is pretty divine. But now I want to get into this rice, which is Rengoku's favorite, with the gyudon onions and the soy sauce and the dashi and the sweet potato. That bite is everything I want. Oh, baby. The sweetness of the rice with the additional sweetness of the gyudon sauce just tastes so nice.
it has this layer of flavor that wouldn't hold up on its own. Like whether or not it was just the gyudon sauce or just the rice, both complement each other really well. And then you have the egg. Should we do it? I think so. The egg, man, you know, it's Mother Nature's mayonnaise. Egg yolk on steak. Come on. Now that I'm done with Rengoku's training, I gotta deal with this guy. Yeah, I know they're not mine, but I just really like them, okay?
Today, I'm going to be eating like best boy Tengen Uzui from Demon Slayer, one of the Hashiras, in particular, the Sound Hashira. For the last 6 weeks, I've been attempting to eat like every single Hashira, and the reason for that is not only to enjoy Taisho era foods and share them with you, but these meals will probably be something that Uzui would very much enjoy. This chain is very loud and it's hitting everything. But also to inspire me to get back into shape, just like Demon Slayer did back in 2019. And that's starting with a pre-workout snack. Now, miso soup has actually been around for over 1,300 years with roots in China before arriving Japan around the 7th century. What's interesting about miso soup in the context of Demon Slayer is that they actually use this soup as an electrolyte. Miso does have a ton of sodium or salt in it. So what that means is it can help replenish electrolytes even when you're sweating. It also contains some potassium, magnesium, and calcium, which are great for muscle function and hydration balance. But the best part is that fermented foods like miso are insanely good for your gut health. I think this is why miso has been around for as long as it's been around. It's incredibly cheap to manufacture and make, it tastes delicious, and it actually has very applicable real-world health benefits for if you are training heavily like Tengen or any of the Demon Slayers. In my case, when I make my miso soup, I like using white miso, but you can use a red miso if you have it. I also am adding in a bit of medium firm tofu to this just for a bit of protein bump. But the tofu itself was cheap and accessible during this time period, so it was seen very often in any dish that you might come across. The next item that I picked was the onigiri. This is also something that they had served in Demon Slayer. Uzui's 3 wives have put together a simple meal of onigiri and miso soup for all of the Demon Slayers during their intense training. The onigiri paired with the miso soup is basically a pre-workout bomb. You have a ton of healthy carbohydrates in the form of the rice ball, plus all of the electrolytes and some protein from the tofu and the miso soup, and you have an all-around good meal for getting your day started. It's not very high in protein if you are going for a high protein meal, but it does do the job. I like finishing my tofu with a bit of fresh green onions and serving it with ice cold green tea.
It's hot outside, okay? I don't really like hot green tea. I'll have it cold though. Cold is good.
You can have whatever green tea you want here, but I'm deciding to have it cold.
And this is breakfast, something that Tengen may have had during his mountain training, where the 3 wives had prepared everything not only for him, but for the other Demon Slayers as well. I'd had a similar meal like this when I was training with all the Hashiras, but the only difference really that I had done was I had filled the onigiri with tuna mayo. The reason why I'm not filling this is because the other 2 meals I'm having today are very protein heavy. So while this has a little bit of protein from the tofu in the soup, I don't necessarily need a ton of protein right now. Yes, you can split it up more evenly, blah, 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 science, but I'm gonna have sushi and steak later. You do you. This was also something that I would have out in Japan pretty much every day for breakfast. Miso soup, tofu, green onions, cheers. There's a reason why this hasn't really changed in hundreds, if not thousands of years. It doesn't need to. A little bit of onigiri. The salt on there makes all the difference. I love seasoning it like that. Okay, yeah, I'm ready. Gandalf, do you wanna go do stretching training? Now today I am still taking it easy because of a shoulder injury. So instead of a full days of like workout and weightlifting and whatever, I'm gonna focus more on the stretching portion and on some more Tengen style workouts later in the day. So right now, we're gonna go get in some stretching training. Gandalf, you wanna go stretch? Come on, buddy. Let's go stretch. Let's go. Come on. You're the worst ninja cat sometimes.
Uzui is not really known for his flexibility, but he has to be somewhat flexible to be this strong. But in my case, since I am recovering from that little shoulder injury, I'm going to be taking it a bit easy today, just focusing on some knee strength and some hip flexibility. If you haven't done these exercises before, touching your knees to the floor like this is super beneficial for your knees, especially as you start to get older. The other thing that I really like to do is Guillaume's horse stance. This one is super important, and you can do this at home with me. The final one that I'm doing is actually a very slow lunge. The reason why I'm doing them slow slowly is because I like to focus on ankle flexion. I had surgery a few years ago and my right ankle isn't as flexible as my left, so I like to focus on that. But with those few stretches out of the way, I get to go home and have more food. But before this sushi meal, I have an important announcement to make from today's sponsor, DoorDash. Thanks, Chef Paul. Today's video is sponsored by DoorDash. Are you tired of empty fridges, late night hunger, and long grocery lines? Well, get ready to upgrade your life with Dash Pass, baby. Dash Pass is the radical delivery service from DoorDash, on-demand delivery platform that brings you what you need, delivered right through the app, straight to your door. Dash Pass members save an average of around $5 per order. That means it pays for itself in an average of just 2 orders. Radical savings? Yes, please. Get more for your delivery with Dash Pass. $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees on eligible DoorDash orders. Sign up for Dash Pass today and get 30 days for free if you're a new member, bro. Use promo code CHEF50 or scan the gnarly QR code on screen. Join the savings revolution and check out Dash Pass today. Check the description for all terms and conditions. Dash Pass, it's like the future. But now, back to you, Chef Paul. Thanks, 80s Paul. Now I can finally make this amazing sushi meal that Tengen would have eaten in Demon Slayer.
Now, breakfast and morning stretches are actually relatively simple, especially for Tengen. They're not especially simple for me because I just, it hurts. It all hurts all the time. This is what happens when you approach 40, I guess. And while breakfast was relatively fine and filling, I want a big meal in the middle of the day to support whatever ninja training is going to be happening. And for that, I've picked one of Tengen's favorite things to eat, sushi. These are so fun. It just,
Now, I've actually made sushi quite a few times in my life, actually working at a sushi restaurant for one of my first jobs, but I won't call myself a master sushi chef. That takes many years, and I will never say that I'm at that skill level. What's interesting about sushi, it was actually invented around the 8th century, but it was more meant as a preservation technique to keep the fish ready to eat and fresh versus an actual type of dish or food. But nigiri sushi, the type of sushi with the rice on the bottom and the fish on top, was invented in the early 1800s, and it was more meant as a street food. It was fast, convenient, and meant to be eaten with your hands, so you could just get a quick bite to eat if you were just on the street. It was super popular among workers, boatmen, and travelers who just wanted a filling little bite of food. But this is where things get pretty interesting, especially during the Taisho era where Demon Slayer takes place. Because refrigeration techniques and preservation techniques got better and better, we started to see sushi available outside of Tokyo Bay areas. This meant more types of sushi available for more types of patrons, and by more types of patrons, those patrons may have had more money. Because of this, a lot of sushi shops moved indoors versus being a street stall. Sushi chefs took more pride in their knife skills, the fish selection, and how they plated things up. I feel like a lot of this is actually reflected in the entertainment district arc where Tengen's story takes place. Dining became more social and more opulent in a lot of ways, going from the street stalls we saw earlier to the fancy sit-down sushi places we know today. How many sushi shops have you been to that charge an arm and a leg for their sushi? Yes, it's delicious, but this used to be a very humble street food snack. Now you can easily spend $100 or more on a night out having sushi. Your average roll price here in the States is going to be between $15 and $20 depending on where you live. Because of this opulence, I think this is something that Tengen would love, especially this sauce.
This sauce is actually my recipe for tangy spicy mayo from Cooking with Chaos, and no, please don't ask me how long that's been in there. If you want to pick up Cooking with Chaos, I'll leave a link down below over at cookingwithchaos.gg where you can pick up the first edition right now.
Sushi has been around for so long and has evolved over the years that there are so many ways of enjoying it. From the traditional sashimi and nigiri to maki rolls to deep fried rolls, I've had sushi 1,000 different ways, and each time it impresses me. One of the things I actually love having with my sushi is this. This is tamagoyaki, and this isn't even any kind of fish. This is actually a rolled sweet egg. It's something you can find at almost any sushi shop worth their grain of salt. The reason why I like this the most is because first, I love eggs and I love omelets, but it does change up the texture and flavors of your sashimi platter if you're having a bunch of raw fish. The sushi rice I made is very traditional. It's just using a little bit of sweetened vinegar to season the rice and then cool down just slightly, and I'm using that to form all of my nigiri. I'm still practicing my technique here by pressing the rice very gently, and the one thing I've learned over the years with making sushi and working with some amazing sushi chefs is that you don't want to smush the rice. You want to move move the rice into place, eliminating any air in between the rice granules. This means you're not trying to mash the rice together, but instead you're forming the rice into a nice tight ball. I'm trying to do the same thing with my maki rolls, but admittedly, moving around the rice on the maki isn't as nice for me. I try to do my best here, making sure it's a nice thinner layer of rice, but that doesn't really matter too much because I'm stuffing the hell out of it with this tuna mayo salmon dish that I'm making. I love messing around with different sushi rolls like this. Yes, it's not traditional, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be good, especially if you're making it for yourself. I think that this is something that Tengen would absolutely order because he loves trying new things and new experiences. If you are making maki rolls, make sure that whatever knife you're using is dipped into a bit of water so this way it doesn't stick to the roll. I'm cutting these into smaller pieces and adding it to the platter with the rest of my sushi. Admittedly, if you were to go to a sushi restaurant today and order this platter of sashimi, nigiri, and this maki roll, you'd easily be spending around $75 to $100 depending on the restaurant you went to. But don't worry, today it's not costing that much. All in all, I spent about $35 on all of this fish. It's a great deal if you make it yourself, except for this wasabi.
This is very expensive. It's real horseradish, and this was $15. And I would only do this because I love Tengen. As you will see later, the dinner itself is going to be very extravagant. This day for Tengen was so much more expensive than any of the other Demon Slayers, probably like 3 or 4 of them combined. So if you'd like to support the channel directly, please go to cookingwithchaos.gg at the link down below or the QR code on screen. Thank you.
I've only ever had fresh wasabi one other time in my life because it's so expensive, and it was at a fancy sushi place that ground their own. Now I did try to locate my fancy wasabi grater, and I ended up finding it in drawer number 4 after I don't know how long at this point. This grater is meant to grind up wasabi, ginger, and garlic. In this case, I'm grinding just a very small amount of this wasabi because again, it's so expensive. What's really nice about fresh wasabi though, is it doesn't punch you in the face like that fake stuff you get at the supermarket. This wasabi is extremely mild, and I highly recommend you try it. You should also try always closing the refrigerator door when you grab stuff out of it so your wife doesn't yell at you. The last thing I need to do is eat the rest of this mixed fish with a little bit of rice in the back of the kitchen so no one can see me like I'm working in a restaurant. This is my own kitchen. I could eat this right in front of you if I wanted to. Now, my lunch platter of sushi is finished. I have my fresh wasabi, my soy sauce, this beautiful platter of nigiri and that maki roll, as well as this plate of sashimi, a meal truly fit for Tengen.
This is definitely a feast fit for Tengen, and this is a lot, especially in the middle of the day, but luckily half of the protein is coming without any carbs. So we have our sashimi over here, including the egg. Then I have my maki roll, which is right here, which is filled with that tuna and the salmon and the Cooking with Chaos tangy mayo. And then I have the rest of my nigiri here. This is how I like to have sushi. I don't typically order rolls very often because I just like nigiri and I like sashimi. Sometimes I do enjoy a good maki roll though. I'm very happy that breakfast wasn't very filling because this is gonna be over the top. I might need a nap.
Hi, my name is Chef PK.
Honestly, I haven't rolled sushi in a very long time, so I'm pretty stoked with how all of this came out. And I'm gonna be starting with just a bit of sashimi first. I still find it interesting that in the Taisho era is actually when sushi started to become more fancy, more mainstream because of refrigeration and specialty sushi shops, and it wasn't just like a snack place, but I've only ever known it as fancy food. Cheers to some sushi and to my boy Tengen. This salmon is incredible. It's super fatty, really meaty, has an incredibly clean flavor. And I have to save some of that for Rachel because she loves salmon. Next, I'm gonna go into this tuna. And this tuna is really lean, like I mentioned, which is actually pretty good, especially for the middle of the day. Cheers. Good tuna, man. You know, one of my favorite things though, is the egg, it's the tamago. A little sweet, but still really nice. Now I wanna try a piece of, oh my God, rice just flew out of my mouth. A piece of the nigiri. I'm not very skilled at flipping this over, so I'm gonna use my hands. I'm gonna give the tuna a little dip, not on the rice. That is so good. That is so good. And of course, I said tuna and then Gandalf shows up. Gandalf, I don't think I can give you raw tuna, buddy. You've had stomach problems. Normally I'd give Gandalf a little snack, but he's been having some stomach problems. So I think giving him any raw food right now is probably not ideal. I'm gonna try the tuna now with a little bit of the fresh wasabi, the $15 wasabi. It's so subtle. It doesn't punch you in the mouth like wasabi that you normally get because that wasabi is just horseradish with green food coloring. Now for a piece of salmon nigiri. Man, I love eating sushi. This is so fun. I don't know what to tell you guys. This was not overly difficult. If you have an Asian market of some kind next to you and they sell sashimi grade fish, I highly encourage you to give it a shot. Rachel's looking at me because I'm just gorging my face off of this sushi. I have to try one more. This is the maki roll. This thing is absolutely loaded, and admittedly, it is a little more wet than a maki roll should be, but I'm gonna eat it. So, you know, if I enjoy it, it's all good. I enjoyed that. I'm gonna take down the rest of my sushi, but I'm gonna be sharing it with my one wife and not three. And then I have 2 more tasks ahead of me before I finish my full day of eating like tengen. This is week 6. We're halfway there. That's nuts.
I'm going to admit I'm incredibly tired today, but I really want to earn the dinner that I'm going to have later tonight because it's something very special and it's not something I have very often. But I'm here at my local park to get in just a little bit more stretching and something that I really want to try to do that I have never done before, mostly because the uzui blades that I have made were 3D printed, but now that I have some foam ones, I can test something out and it's probably going to look super awkward, but you know, we're in public and this is just what happens. There's no one here because it's 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm all alone. It's like super quiet. It's kind of eerie.
3 years ago, I practiced 3 sectional staff training to become Toji from Jujutsu Kaisen, and I figured, why can't I try this to become Tengen from Demon Slayer? This is actually a lot harder to do than with the 3 sectional staff because it's a free-flowing chain. But I promise, I am doing this for a reason because I have a show to get to.
I'm pretty happy with that. That was pretty good, but now my shoulder hurts after I injured it during Sanemi's training. So that's fun. Nice, Paul. Good job.
You think I would listen to my own advice, but I didn't care. I really want to practice this because I'm going to be at a very special convention later in September, and I want to be able to twirl these around as Tengen.
I feel like that's super fun. I can't wait to do this at a convention. Speaking of, I guess I should tell you guys that I'm going to be at Rose City Comic-Con this year. It's going to be held here in Portland, and I actually have a booth. The booth is going to be Chef PK and Cooking with Chaos. So if you are in Portland during Rose City Comic-Con, please stop by. I would love to see you. And if you still need tickets for Rose City Comic-Con, head to the link down below and you can pick them up with my link. Rose City Comic-Con is one of my favorite conventions, and I've gone every single year since living in Portland. And this year, I think we're gonna do K-pop Demon Hunter Uzui. Yeah, that checks out. Yeah, we're gonna do that.
Admittedly, this is super fun for me. It's not a real workout, but imagine being outside, swinging around foam swords in public without anybody staring at you in a weird way. It happens. Now, I still want to try to touch my toes. After warming up one more time, and this being the second workout of the day, I did get super close, and I was able to touch my toes with my back bent.
So I can touch my toes, but not in the way that I want, which sounds super strange. Like you should be able to just, you touch your toes and that's it. That's game over, right? But problem is that to unlock my hamstrings fully, I want to keep my back flat and be able to touch my toes. So if I curl my back, I can get there now. Now that I'm nice and warm, oh yeah, oh God, straighten the knees. Feels like everything's gonna snap. But if I flatten my back, I'm still about 5 inches, maybe 6. I'm so close. I'm so close. Now it's time for dinner. And I got something very, very special, and I can't wait to eat it in this heat because they're gonna have it outside. Maybe it's not a good idea to eat outside today. I don't know. I got outside. I touched grass, okay?
Technically, I only touched grass walking over there, so it still counts. But now for the most opulent Tengen meal, Wagyu Bento.
I have to admit, I am incredibly hot, tired, and sweaty. But it was all worth it. All of this was worth it because I get to have this. Not just bok choy. There's other stuff other than bok choy. Let me make this.
Now here's something interesting you may not know. Wagyu just means beef, or in this case, Japanese cattle or Japanese cow. But more recently, it's had a distinction of being high quality, super fatty, rich beef. There are several types of Wagyu, ranging from the American style Wagyu, which is typically a crossbreed of different cows, all the way up to the amazing A5 style Wagyu from Japan. What I find fascinating is that before the Taisho era where Demon Slayer takes place, beef wasn't actually eaten that often because it was an incredibly Buddhist culture. But that all started to change during the Taisho era, where Western influences were becoming more and more common, like we've seen with previous Demon Slayer recipes. Even though Wagyu beef was more reserved for people who had a ton of money, especially someone who loved luxury like Tengen, beef was becoming more and more commonly consumed. Could you imagine a Japan without gyudon, Rengoku's favorite bento box? not me. The side dishes for this bento were relatively simple. It was just blanched bok choy and some roasted sweet potatoes. The reason why I didn't really talk about them too much is because you can use anything local for this bento box, but the goal is to keep the ingredients very simple so they don't conflict with the flavors of the Wagyu. A lot of the times with Wagyu, you do want to just taste the beef. This means no additional sauces, no additional sides, nothing to really impact the flavor of the beef itself. A lot of the times it's served with just salt on the side and sometimes a house sauce if it's available. So in this case, I'm just using the fats from the Wagyu to flavor everything, including this bok choy. You can buy Wagyu fat by the jar and it's about $16 to $20 depending on your location. So if I have some leftover Wagyu fat from the actual steak, I'm going to absolutely use it. Now the bento box I'm using is a custom bento box I had commissioned and I love the artwork here, but you can use any bento box you would like or just put everything onto a plate, or my favorite, serve them all separately. So you'll have the sweet potatoes on the side on one plate, the bok choy on another plate, and the steak on its own. This way you can mix and match what you want to eat. But because I really wanted to make this a bento, I'm going to layer this in a very specific way, starting with the steamed sweet potato. The steamed sweet potato is going to be the bed of this entire bento. This allows a lot of the juices to fall onto the potato, which could absorb it. After the potato, I'm adding that bok choy as a layer between the steamed potato and that bok choy. Next is to thinly slice this Wagyu. You don't want them so thin that they're similar to the sushi we had, but you do want them thin enough to where you can pick it up with chopsticks out of the bento and eat it as is. If the steak is too thick, you might want to try to cut it, but that's not in the spirit of the bento. So instead, cut it thin enough to where you can eat it in one bite.
And there it is, my friends, the most simple yet delicious bento. This is like $60 worth of ingredients in this bento, and it's very fitting for Uzui. He loves to be flashy, he loves to be the center of attention, but I think he has a true eye for quality. This is why he never gave up on Tanjiro, and this is why he would love a Wagyu bento with very few ingredients, but executed very, very well. This is worth it for today. I may be exhausted, but yeah, this is why you do things. Now, I still haven't reached my goal yet, but I've explored so many really cool Taisho era dishes to celebrate Demon Slayer so far. And we're also really close to the release of the movie. So make sure you head over to cookingwithchaos.gg at the link in the description to sign up for the newsletter, so you might have a chance to win some movie tickets to go see the new Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. I'm so excited for this movie. Cheers. It's hard to describe the difference between a regular steak and A5 Wagyu. Like, it's backed by science when you say it melts in your mouth. Oh my God, oh I forgot. I don't normally drink, but there's a sake distillery here in Oregon called Sake One, maybe, in Forest Grove, Oregon. And they make one called Yomi. And I figured it was pretty fitting that we should slay this Oni sake. You get it? Because what do you want from me? I'm 40 and I make weird jokes, okay? Here's to you and to my boy Tengen. Sake in a can, doesn't get much more opulent than that. But I still have to continue this journey, so make sure you get subscribed to see what happens next with this Hashira. Gotta deal with him now.
You need to hone all of your movement.
Over the last 7 weeks, I've attempted to train and eat like every single Hashira from Demon Slayer. And this week, I have to try to take on Moichiro's challenge. Don't ask me why this is like this. It's just the way it is. Demon Slayer has inspired me to get in shape before, but this time I'm using it for another reason. I want to try to touch my toes before the release of Infinity Castle. So not only am I making all of the Hashira's favorite foods, but I'm attempting to touch my toes. And if I don't, I'm gonna buy you guys some movie tickets. All you have to do is sign up for my newsletter below and I'll let you know who wins. But now it's time for Mochiro. Let's start with some breakfast. The first dish for breakfast is something I've never actually had before, and it happens to be Moichiro's favorite. It's called furofuki daikon, a type of simmered daikon radish you might find in a bowl of oden. Now, oden usually has a mix of meats, fish, and fish cakes and vegetables all simmered together, but furofuki daikon is different. It's just daikon, by itself, nothing else. The flavor is actually deeper than you might expect, and it kind of reminds me of Moichiro himself. Small and unassuming, but super powerful. In fact, he even gave Sanemi and Obanai a run for their money in a 2-on-1 fight, and I think he really leveled up after the events with Tanjiro during the Swordsmith Village arc. Historically, furofuki daikon has been around for centuries, but in the Taisho era, it became especially popular as a comfort food during colder months. During this time, Japan saw rapid urbanization, meaning more workers and students were eating outside of their home, like you see today in modern-day Tokyo. Oden stalls were a common and affordable way to get a hot meal, and furofuki daikon was one of the easiest components to prepare in bulk. Plus, it's really fun to say, furofuki daikon. It's cheap, filling, and warming for those colder months. It also stores really well well, making it kind of a practical choice for vendors who serve customers late at night. That's why I think it's kind of the perfect fit for this time period. It's exactly the kind of simple, satisfying dish someone like Moichiro could have enjoyed after a long day of training. To make it, you start by cutting peeled daikon into about 2-inch tall pieces with no skin on the daikon. Boil them in water until they're slightly soft in the middle, not fully cooked though. You're going to remove them from the water, and then we're going to simmer them in kelp dashi. This is just kelp, no fish flakes. Dashi is the key here though. It infuses the daikon with a ton of flavor. But you don't want to cook it in the dashi from the start, or the flavor will just get too strong. 10 to 15 minutes into the second simmer is plenty to make the daikon tender all the way through. One of the secrets I learned is actually adding in a bit of the rice into the water when you boil it to give it a nice starchy texture. Now this miso sauce that I'm feeding Moichiro was super simple. It's just white miso and enough water to help it be a little liquidy, and just a little bit of lemon zest to help flavor the miso. During the second boil, you do want to make sure that you put the daikon into fresh water before you start the second boil. This is just to help remove any of the starch that may have been stuck to the daikon from when we added the rice in there. After the second boil is done for those 10 to 15 minutes, this daikon is ready to plate up, and it's as simple as taking a hot piece of daikon directly out of the broth and then topping it off with that really beautiful loose miso sauce. I'm also throwing in just a little bit of seaweed to give it some color, and a slice of lemon to give it extra pop. Unsurprisingly, this is Moichiro's favorite dish, and I can't wait to dig into this.
What I find interesting about this dish, the furofuki daikon, is that it's a dish mostly enjoyed in the fall and the winter. Judging by how it looks during the Swordsmith Village arc, it definitely wasn't winter time because there's no snow in the mountains or anything like that, but the only time we really saw winter was during the first episode when we were introduced to Tanjiro and his family. But this is Moichiro, the Mist Hashida's favorite food, and I can probably see why. It's super simple. It looks like it would be something very comforting, and honestly, I wonder if it's a dish that maybe he had as a kid. It's also super easy to make. You literally just throw it into a pot a couple of times and boil it, and then throw this beautiful salty miso sauce on top. Cheers. You have to very much like daikon to enjoy this, and I very much enjoy daikon. It's perfectly soft. You can see when I insert the knife, it just kind of cuts straight through. The miso adds a ton of flavor. I feel like if you didn't have the miso, it wouldn't taste like much. Even though we did season the broth that it continued to cook in, you do need some kind of a miso sauce. But I also think the daikon itself is such a neutral flavor that you could absolutely put on some barbecue sauce onto this, maybe cut it in half lengthwise and throw some cheese on it. Just have some fun with it. Throw it on the grill, you do you. This is fantastic. This is also like 120 calories. So today is going to be a rough start, but I gotta go stretch because I think I'm so close to my toes. All right, let's get this done. We're all gonna be so gassy.
7 weeks ago when I was training like Mid-City for this challenge, I couldn't get anywhere near my toes. And this is how far I have gotten by learning how to breathe like a demon slayer. I can now touch my toes by rounding my back, which is not part of the thing that I'm trying to do, but I can still finally touch my toes. I still need to go a little bit further though. I'm using a ton of breathing techniques to make sure that my knees are locked, so this way I get a nice stretch on the hamstrings. I'm still incredibly excited that I can do this, but I still have work to do. Since my body is still incredibly tight as I've gotten a bit older, I'm using this really light barbell to help me stretch while keeping my knees straight and my back flat. This is a very different stretching technique, but I feel like it's really important for those of us who are getting a little bit older, and anyone can do this with a really light weight. This weight is only about 15 pounds, so you can just grab yourself a heavy book and do this right now. Literally, stand up, go grab a heavy book and do these little bits of stretches. Don't use anything too heavy. You just need something light. I also, of course, did the Instagram model stretch because I think it's one of the better stretches, unfortunately, for its position.
With stretching training done today, I'm so excited to now have, well, we're not going to be by an ocean, but we are going to be having cake. I need to get out of this cardio room. It's giving me nightmares. I don't want to be here. I don't want to do more cardio than I have to do later today.
One of the dishes I decided to reflect Moichiro is Castella cake. Now, Castella cake actually predates the Taisho era. It first came to Japan from Portugal around the 1600s, brought by traders to Nagasaki. Over time, though, the Japanese adapted it to their own version called kasutera, which you can find everywhere throughout Japan. By the Taisho era, Japan was undergoing rapid modernization, similarly to what we spoke about during Mitsudi's training as well. Western-style confections were becoming more and more accessible. Bakers began blending Japanese and European techniques, and Castella's soft, delicate sponge was the perfect bridge between the two worlds. As people spent more time outside their homes for work, leisure, and travel, sweet shops and street vendors became gathering spots and extremely popular. and Castella cake was easy, portable, and delicious. It symbolized the era's extra mix of tradition and modernity, but also the heavy use of wheat product. Making Castella cake isn't overly difficult. It's basically a vanilla chiffon style sponge cake, but with just a few differences. Notably is the color that you want to get on this Castella cake. I didn't make this properly, so I didn't get a ton of color, but one of the techniques I had learned was just using a torch to give it some browning. The Castella cake also gets soaked in a honey syrup. The honey syrup is literally just honey and warm water, and you brush this on very liberally to help flavor the cake. The only thing is you do have to let this rest overnight before cutting. It kind of reminds me of making baklava, where you take a cold or a hot cake and add cold or hot syrup depending on which one's cold and which one's hot, but always make sure one is cold and one is hot. Does that make sense? So in my case, I used hot cake but somewhat cold syrup. But this cake that I've made today is not the cake that I'm actually going to eat. I decided to take a note from the Taisho era and visited a local shop that had a homemade Castella cake. They didn't only have Castella cake though. They had a variety of different Korean, Japanese, and Taiwanese inspired sweets. Honestly, I wanted to go all in on this sweets cafe, but I just honed in on where they had the homemade Castella cakes. They had a few different varieties. One of them included a yuzu variety, which I was super curious about, but I knew I needed to try their premium honey Castella cake. Apparently, this bag was strong enough to take on Muzan by himself, but I eventually became smarter than the bag and had access to my cake. The one thing with this cake in particular though, is that I lost some of the top of the cake trying to get it out of the packaging. But in my case, there is never lost tops of cakes. I yanked that right out of the bag because this looked so good, I didn't want any of it to go to waste. No cake was wasted today. Now this cake does still look really good, even with those little top pieces missing. I mean, it's spongy, it's golden, it's beautiful, it has an amazing looking crust, and I can't wait to have this for lunch.
I mean, if you could get Castella cake at the drop of a hat, why wouldn't you? Cheers. This is really good. Imagine just sitting in a bakery with an entire cake. Not me. I feel like this is right up Moichiro's alley. What's not up my alley is the amount of running I'm about to do after eating cake. But it's worth it. Eat cake, go running. So, new shirt.
Now, Moichiro is incredibly fast, like insanely fast. Look at this clip where he's fighting Sanemi and Obonai. You can't even keep up with him. So now the second part of the day to work off the cake and the tea and the daikon, that's not even really something you should need to work off. It has like nothing in it. It's just vegetables and broth. I'm going to do a few sprints, and it is 97 degrees outside, 1 degree short of a boy band. This is it's honestly pretty miserable out here. So I'll do a couple, and then I'm gonna go make dinner. This is awful. This is an awful day. I hope my camera doesn't explode while I'm recording this. Now, even though I do have to train in sprinting today, it doesn't mean I don't warm up with a quick jog. But I wasn't the only one out here training in the heat like Demon Slayer. I need to be fast like Moichiro, and look at this is not fast like Moichiro at all. I even left my microphone in my pocket, so that's what that sounds like. But as soon as I got down to my 100-yard sprint, I came right back, faster than Moichiro could ever be. Look, I kind of wish I was as fast as Moichiro, but I just look like an oversized penguin. Yeah. Sorry, I had to do that. When I bring you along for the ride, it literally looks like I'm walking at a somewhat fast pace. But hey, at least I have really cool sunglasses. It is way too hot out here for this. Oh, Lord. What? My feet are on fire. Who signed up for... Imagine being like the water Hashira and just deciding you want it to cool off, Maybe that's the most overpowered Hashira. I mean, or it could be the fire Hashira, then you just never get hot. I don't know which one is the best. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I could be either one, maybe both. I think this is why Tanjiro is so powerful. He can cool himself down and heat himself up. He has the best of both worlds, unlike me on this mat right now. Each week, I'm also trying to get better at my butterfly kick, but it's also something I haven't trained that well in, especially because I don't have a gym mat to really practice this on. So I channeled my inner Mitsuri and tried to land a few butterfly kicks that I was happy with.
It's too hot. It's too hot. Nope. And you're coming with me. It's too hot out here. We need to go back in where it's cooler and get some food, okay? Okay, pumpkin?
I don't think you guys realize how difficult it is trying to train in 98-degree weather. We did achieve boy band status, but I wasn't very happy about it. I've actually not eaten a lot of calories today because Moichiro's diet is relatively simple. And this dinner is also not going to be a lot of calories because it's mostly potato. But I did have something else in mind, and it's actually a very special dish that I think you're all going to really enjoy, and it's something that I ate quite a bit of in Japan, which showed up on the scale later. And that dish is called korokke, or croquets. Croquets began to appear in the late 19th century during the Meiji era of Japan. The reason for that is, once again, Japan adopting Western style dishes into their daily lives. What's interesting about the croquet, though, is that it has French origins based on mashed potatoes with maybe a cream or a bechamel. But in the case of the Japanese version, it's mostly just mashed potato. I think this actually gives it a really light, fluffy texture versus a heavy, denser texture you might find in the French variety. So in my case, I scooped out one leftover baked potato, keeping the skins for later, and then just microwaved it to heat it up a bit and adding in some salt and pepper to make the base of my croquet. Croquets are inexpensive, they're super filling, and they're really easy to produce in mass. I was able to find these all over the place in Tokyo.
Normally, it can be filled with cheese, beef, other vegetables, but I figure since I have some of the leftover daikon that I simmered that I had for breakfast, I may as well try this in here. I've never actually had it that way before. I don't think I ever had it in Japan that way either. So this is gonna be a very interesting experiment, but I wanna try it.
The most common variety of the croquet is just a standard potato croquet, but a lot of the times you'll find different mincemeats, other vegetables, and even sometimes seafood in these. So in this case, this might be the very first time you're gonna see furufuki daikon inside of a potato croquet. Since my potato was a little dry because I am using russet or Idaho potatoes, I had to add a little bit of hot water to help mash this together, because you do want this to be able to hold up when it fries.
Here's another pro tip. You could also use leftover mashed potatoes to make these. You don't have to make the potatoes from scratch like I did. Just use leftover mash. We used to do it all the time when I worked at an Irish restaurant. Those Sunday morning hush puppy and fritters, leftover mashed potatoes.
This is why I think brunch is extremely overrated, because a lot of the times you're just being served leftovers from Saturday night's dinner. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, you guys are paying $19 for steak and eggs, and that steak was made the night before. But now it's time for the cheese tax.
I know, come on. I decided I wanted some cheese in my fritters, so we have to pay the cheese tax. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. There you go. Get your cheese tax. You know what it is.
Now that Gandalf has been paid his tax, it's time to stuff some of this cheese into these potato croquets, and you want a decent amount in here.
No, Gandalf, you can't have any more of this. No, put that paw away, sir.
Gandalf is way too smart. Look at him just eyeball. He knows exactly where the cheese went.
Mine.
Is this how you guys defend yourself against your cats? You just kiss them over the head until they stop doing whatever they're doing? After a little bit of forming of my potatoes, these are ready.
2 cheese-filled croquets. I still can't say. I want to say karaoke, but it's korokke. Gotta think about it. Back up, dude. Get away from my cutting board. Get away from my cutting board. No. Get up, I'm sticky and sweaty and it's been a long day.
Now, since I am going to be deep frying these in a shallow pan, I need to make sure that they're not too thick. What I also think is fascinating about this dish and a lot of the dishes we've been discovering on this journey is how heavily influenced they are by westernization. Something as simple as using flour to dredge the potato is not something we may have seen before this time period or the early 1900s. But now we're seeing flour used everywhere throughout Japan. From breads to noodles to even, yes, tempura, we started to see this pop up more and more often, not only in restaurants, but on the street at street food stalls and in homes across Japan. I think this time in Japanese culture is extremely exciting because you start to see the blend of different cultures come together. Once I have both of my croquets completely coated in the panko breadcrumb, this is where I could actually start shallow frying it. I actually really enjoy shallow frying because you don't have to use as much oil. I have my oil at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Any hotter and you might actually burn the outside without having the inside cook properly.
Now, if you don't actually want to shallow fry or deep fry these would work really, really well in an air fryer. Granted, in the Taisho era of Japan, they may not have had air fryers, so this was really the only choice that they had, especially when working with breadcrumbs.
Okay, hear me out. This is complete speculation, but if Tanjiro swings his sword very, very quickly while using flame breathing, he might actually create an air fryer. An air fryer is just hot air being blown around consistently. Kind of like me when I do a lot of these voiceovers. After around 4 or 5 minutes of shallow frying these croquets, they're ready to plate up. And traditionally, it would be plated up with a bunch of shredded cabbage, but I have some leftover shredded lettuce, and I'm also plating it up with this really delicious sauce. Paul, what sauce is this? Is this from the Taisho era?
This sauce, I'm so glad you asked. It's actually from Cooking with Chaos, my brand new infinite recipe card system. And don't ask me how long it's been there. Maybe during the sprints, it may have gotten in the way. At least they're slightly water resistant. Cooking with Chaos is my infinite recipe card system featuring 60 different recipe cards you can mix and match to make brand new meals every single time. So not only can you mix and match any of the 3 different cards to combine to make a new meal, but you can use cards individually to spice up the meal that you're eating right now. Pick from 20 different sauces, 20 different proteins, and 20 different sides to make your favorite new meal. Something you may have not ever had before. But don't take my word for it. Look at what the community has already made with some of their favorite combinations. And hey, if you don't feel like picking dinner that night, just roll the D20 because every card has a 20-sided die mechanic in the top right corner where you can just roll a die and let fate decide your meal that night. You can pick up Cooking with Chaos at the link down below over at cookingwithchaos.gg or with the QR code on screen. This has been a labor of love for the past few years and I can't wait for you to try it out. I also can't wait to try out this tangy spicy mayo with these croquets. I think that's gonna be fantastic. My favorite style of croquet is actually like a meat-filled one. You'll find those pretty commonly out in Japan where they mix cooked beef into the potato and then fry that. So you get bits of beef throughout. I wanna see what the cheese looks like inside. You ready? Let's get a little, maybe we'll get a cheese pull. Oh, look at that. Look. That looks so good. That is a nice cheese pull. Oh, baby. That looks so good. Now, cheese was starting to become more and more common during the Taisho era because of Western influences, so this could have happened. Not saying it did, but it could have. I'm gonna taste this on its own before I dip it into the tangy spicy mayo. Cheers. What's interesting is that you can smell the daikon more than you can taste it. The potatoes themselves are nice and hot. They're seasoned really well with just the salt and pepper. The mozzarella gives it a nice flavor and texture as well. The coating on the outside is perfect. It gives it this nice crunch, but it's not too thick. This is just really good and really subtle. It doesn't punch you in the face. But I want to try it with the tangy spicy mayo because I think that's going to actually punch me in the face. Cheers. The sauce makes it 10 times better. And I'm not saying that because Cooking with Chaos is my own product. I'm saying that because I love the flavors of this sauce with the potato and the cheese and the crunchy. This is just really, really good. But now I have to deal with the next hashira, shinobu.
Now, Shinobu's favorite food is tsukudani ginger, a type of ginger that's cooked down with soy sauce, mirin, a bit of water, and some sugar. What's interesting about this dish is that it's not really a dish in and of itself, but more of an accompaniment to other dishes. It's also not really known as to why she loves this dish. There was some information that I found that this was actually a dish that just reminded her of her home or her sister. But tsukudani is actually a style of cooking that goes way back to the Edo period. It was originally used to preserve small fish, seaweed, and other shellfish by simmering them in the soy sauce and mirin and sugar. This gave them a ton of flavor and seasoning, and it would make them last a few days when refrigeration wasn't really a thing. By the Taisho era, when Demon Slayer takes place, tsukudani had really expanded to include vegetables and especially things like ginger. But ginger isn't just about flavor. Historically, it's also carried a ton of medicinal importance as well. It was believed to keep the body warm, help with digestion, and even fight off fatigue. This makes it a natural fit for someone like Shinobu, who not only fights demons with medicinal poisons, but also is the main healer of the Demon Slayer corpse. Pairing tsukudani ginger with a simple bowl of rice gave people in Taisho era something super affordable, really tasty, and pretty nourishing throughout the day. The rice gives you this really clean, natural energy, and the ginger with the salt does help hydrate you and give a ton of flavor to the rice. It's kind of like a natural energy shot back then. But more importantly, it's really the kind of breakfast that best reflects Shinobu. She's small, subtle, but she's really, really powerful.
Do you know what I find really interesting about Shinobu as a character is that she really reminds me, and this is maybe a throwback to a lot of you, she really reminds me of Unohana from Bleach. She was one of the original Kenpachi, and she is incredibly powerful. One of the most powerful captains in all of Bleach, but she is very unassuming. Back in the day when I was watching Bleach, I would see her and I would think there's something more to Unohana. I feel like Shinobu is like that. Really unassuming, but incredibly powerful. I feel like that's reflected in this dish in a lot of ways. The ginger itself is just cooked in a very simple way, paired with the white rice, but it's going to have a punch. Now, there are 2 ways of making this. You can actually boil the ginger in a little bit of water to remove a lot of the harshness, but I actually like that punch of ginger. So I'm gonna have it this way. Cheers. It's beautiful. I mean, you get a little bit of the kick from the ginger, you get the flavors of the soy sauce and the mirin, but it's not overwhelming. You have to like ginger though. I love ginger, and this is right up my alley. This is gonna go really well in the lunch I'm gonna make later. But since we are in the Taisho era, I'm gonna say we have found some coffee, which I'm gonna go get before I do some of my stretching training before lunch.
Now, unfortunately, today's also leg day, so that means I have to do double stretch training plus leg day on the same day. So for the first part of the day, I'm actually gonna focus on my knee strength. Yes, this sounds super strange, but as you get older, it's really important to make sure your knees still work really well, so this way it doesn't hurt when you stand up out of your chair after playing video games all day. The warm-ups and stretches that I'm doing before leg day actually do help me loosen up before getting started. And honestly, I was not able to do this before I started all of this Demon Slayer training. I'm really happy with the progress so far, but I still have a ways to go. I won't bother you with all of this gym stuff, but I basically just did a standard leg day today. I worked on some thighs and some more thighs, and then I worked on some hamstrings because those are really important. But the main one is this Jefferson curl, which does help me reach the flexibility that I'm looking for. If you haven't tried this before, you can do this with a really heavy book and just try to get that book to touch the ground. I finished it off with a little bit of walking, but now I really want some lunch because breakfast wasn't that filling for me. Now, one of the things I haven't made on this journey so far is one of my favorite things to make and eat, especially given how popular this dish is in Japan, the egg salad sandwich. Let me explain. Now, its roots do go back to the Meiji area around the 1870s, early 1900s, but bread was actually introduced much earlier by the Portuguese in the 1600s. It just didn't catch on until much later. By the Meiji period, bread was becoming a little more common, but eggs were still seen as a Western style protein, which is wild to think because Japan's egg game is crazy. But this all started to change in the Taisho era where Demon Slayer takes place. This is when the light, fluffy, delicious shokupan started to really take off, and that's all thanks to kisaten, or those coffee houses. These Western style cafes started to pop up all across the country, and they were introducing simple meals like sandwiches. The egg salad sandwich, or tamago sando, fit right into this new culture. It was cheap, filling, and only needed a couple of ingredients: hard-boiled eggs mashed with butter at the time, or sometimes imported mayo. Kewpie mayo wasn't invented until around 1925, but versions of the egg salad sandwich were already around in this era. Eating lighter Western-style meals became a symbol of modern life, and sandwiches were at the heart of that shift. Think about how you might grab a quick peanut butter and jelly before heading out the door, and that's exactly how the tamago sando fit into the Taisho era of Japan.
There's your bread. You can't have bread, mister. Or bad for you. You know what you can have? You can have a minnow. Come on, come here. Everybody wants to say hi. They don't actually care about these videos unless you're in them. There you go. Oh, Jesus, that was aggressive. Gandalf, this is my lunch. You can't have this. No, I don't have any more. I don't have any more minnows for you. No more minnow.
Now that our Lord Gandalf has been entertained, let's get back to this egg salad sandwich. Even today, it's still one of Japan's most accessible foods. You can find it in any convenience store, sandwich shop, and even vending machines. For me, it's the perfect example of Japan blending Western influence with Japanese taste, and honestly, it's one of my favorite sandwiches to make and eat. But I wanted to take this a step further and use some of Shinobu's favorite food, the Sukudani ginger, right into that sandwich to make it something completely different, something I've never had before, and something I'm incredibly excited to try.
And this is a Taisho era inspired sandwich with Shinobu's favorite food, the Sukadani ginger. God, it's so hard to pronounce. Honestly, it looks really, really delicious, especially with the ginger in there. This can be substituted for cucumbers, pickles, really whatever you want. Egg salad sandwiches are pretty versatile, and you could throw in any of your favorite foods on top of it. I can't wait to dig into this. It just smells phenomenal. Cheers to lunch, and then I have a little bit of mobility training, and then a very special dinner. Cheers. The amount of flavor that the ginger gives to the egg is I haven't tasted this before. This is so good. The egg itself is creamy. It's nice and kind of meaty in a way. Egg salad sandwich, you can't go wrong. But then you throw that ginger on top of that, and it changes the flavor completely. Now it's slightly sweet, slightly spicy, slightly salty. This is, oh God, I need to make more of that ginger. This is really good. Okay, you know, I was starving before this because breakfast was literally nothing. And now I'm ready. Now I'm ready for that mobility stuff and then dinner. I just want dinner at this point. I'm so tired.
Now you may be asking, Paul, why are you in the middle of a field rather than your regular training area right over there? Well, I'll tell you. Barbara. There's a bunch of kids over there, so I didn't really want to have my camera out and filming because that feels really weird. So I'm going to do some of my mobility training here. Now, Shinobu is a very interesting character because she doesn't get a ton of screen time, so don't really know what she's capable of. But we know she's a very powerful demon slayer, a Hashira. And so I'm going to take it as she is just very strong and very flexible. Maybe not so much like Mitsuri and maybe not as fast or strong as our boy Uzui, but she has strength in her own ways. And she likes to just like poisons everybody, you know, so maybe that's her strength. She's just kind of shady about things. I'm not quite sure. So I'm going to try to get in a little bit of mobility training after eating all of that egg and bread and ginger. And it feels really weird in my stomach and being out here right now. But I'm really looking forward to dinner. Because dinner, I think, is interesting. Dinner is something you're not even going to see coming. It's so inconspicuous that it could actually be Shinobu on a plate, which it's not actually her on a plate. Okay, let's get started. I'm just rambling now.
Now this is where I get to actually test my toe touch. I want to make sure that I stretch out a bit more because I did get a little bit cold after having lunch, and it's always important to warm up before you stretch. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's a thing. I was able to touch my toes. I was actually able to get much farther than I've ever been before. This is incredibly exciting for me because I don't think I've been able to do this for 10 years. I actually wanted to see if I could get my knuckles on the floor, but that is an ambition set for later. I am super happy with this so far.
Hey, not gonna lie, Demon Slayer breathing works in real life. You know, they talk about this when you're doing yoga or Pilates or anything like that, and honestly, I think it works. It helps. Concentrating, breathing, learning to relax your body. It's awesome. Good stuff.
But there's also one more test that I had to give myself. A secret test I've been working on for the past 8 weeks, something I've never showed to you guys before.
I wasn't able to do this 8 weeks ago now, getting this low of a squat position without it being absolutely painful. I think that's a huge win for me. I went into this not really thinking of anything other than how can I celebrate food and maybe get a little bit healthier and have that Taisho era vibe. And honestly, even though I have gained some weight in the past few weeks, actually since I started this, I felt pretty good. I've gone up about 6 pounds since I've started due to just kind of not eating right. So that's a whole nother thing, and some stress in general. But look at my knees. I'm feeling pretty good. Sometimes it's not all about the scale, you know? Like watch this. No problem. The hips feel pretty good. Whew. Even after leg day. I'm actually very happy with myself. And you should be happy with yourself if you're improving in any little way. Could be artwork, could be in the kitchen, maybe you're cooking right now. It could be with whatever training you might have going on. It could be something as simple as maybe you've been trying to wake up a little bit earlier and you've been doing that. To each their own, and we all have our little wins in life and our own demons to fight. Because remember, just like in Demon Slayer, demons never rest. So neither should you. But now we're gonna go have some dinner. And like I said, what is happening with my hair? It's so tall. We're gonna go have some dinner. And I don't think you're expecting this one because it's from a friend of mine and she worked pretty hard on this recipe. So I'm excited to share it.
Now, I did mention you were going to be surprised by what I'm having for dinner, and that comes thanks to Cooking with Chaos, my brand new infinite recipe card system. Stop asking me where I'm pulling these cards out of. Cooking with Chaos is my brand new 60 card infinite recipe card system. That means you can mix and match different proteins, sides, and sauces to make a brand new meal you've never even thought of. And in this case, I'm making the Hamburg steak for dinner. This card is really special because I didn't write this recipe. My friend Onigiri wrote this recipe. She's a VTuber who loves to cook and is a friend of mine, and I asked her to write a few recipes for Cooking with Chaos. Her name is listed on the bottom of the cards she had contributed to Cooking with Chaos, and it's one of my favorite parts about this. I've actually had a few of my other YouTuber chef friends contribute recipes, so maybe one of your favorites is in here. I've been loving using Cooking with Chaos on the daily, but don't take my word for it. Look at what people in the community have already made. The Chaos community is going strong, and I can't wait for you to get your hands on it. So much so that I actually have a booth at Rose City Comic Con this year in Portland. Rose City Comic Con is taking place September 5th through the 7th, and we're gonna have a big booth there to show off Cooking with Chaos. I truly believe in these. I use them all the time. My wife uses them all the time. My friends use them all the time. And hopefully you'll use them all the time. I made this for you. I'm a nerd at heart, and you can tell because of red, blue, green, and Squirtle, Bulbasaur, Charmander. Come on, I couldn't not do it. If you want to pick up Cooking with Chaos, I'll leave a link down in the description below or with QR code on screen. Or come and see me at Rose City Comic Con this year, September 5th through the 7th. You'll be able to check out the cards in person, and I'm gonna have a few fun giveaways for people who show up. Now, let's make this Hamburg steak from my friend Onigiri for today's dinner.
The Hamburg steak is really a dish that shows how Western influence transformed Japanese food during the Taisho era. Hamburg steak originally came from Germany, where it was simply processed ground beef patty. Dude, what are you doing to this poor egg?
What happened to this egg? Dear Lord. I mean, at this point, just gonna...
Technically, finger seasoning is not in this recipe, but I guess you can pull it off here. When the Hamburg steak reached Japan in the 1800s, it became part of yoshiku, Western-style Japanese cuisine. At first, it was mostly served in really high-end restaurants, but by the Taisho era, where Demon Slayer takes place, Western dishes were becoming more and more accessible. Coffee houses, train stations, dining halls, and department stores started to serve things like Hamburg steak with rice, vegetables, or even bread like shokupan, which we had earlier. It began to represent modernity, eating like the West, but still prepared in a very Japanese way. Unlike a plain grilled steak, Hamburg steak was much more affordable.
It's fine. This amount of shallot going into the very cold meat is not gonna make a difference temperature-wise because we're also going to be cooking it right away. It's okay. Everybody just needs to stop freaking out.
We all can't be perfect like Shinobu, so sometimes we have to fudge the recipe. Ground beef could be stretched with onions, breadcrumbs, and seasonings, and in my case, I'm using pork as a filler. It makes it a really practical way to enjoy something that felt luxurious, but without breaking the bank. Now, one key difference I like doing for my Hamburg steak, and that I've seen done plenty of times in Japanese restaurants, is searing one side of the Hamburg steak for only about 2 minutes and then giving a flip and adding some water directly to the pan and throwing a lid on top of it to help steam the meat.
Nice.
This will give it a really nice texture.
Lucian, you look like a little floof. You know that? Why are you like loafing? Why are you loafing? What's up, buddy? Come here. This is done. Hold on. I'll be right back. This is Lucian. He doesn't get as much screen time as Gandalf because Gandalf is a monster, but I love Lucian. He's so adorable. My little guy, you know? Okay. He's just chilling, man. He's just vibing right now, but I want to eat that. Gandalf, everyone can hear you. Everyone knows you're a monster, but we love you too. Okay, let's plate this up. This thing is done.
Now make sure that you do temp your Hamburg steak because it can be really thick. I like to cook mine to around 158 Fahrenheit.
Gandalf, don't you lick that, I can hear you.
You can absolutely serve this up as a normal hamburger with a burger bun, but in most cases, it's going to be served up on a plate with some side dishes. I'm also using the pan drippings instead of making a gravy for my Hamburg steak.
No. This is broccoli. There's no world where you need broccoli, sir.
In addition to this leftover steamed broccoli I had, I'm throwing some of that cooked down ginger right on top and using the sauce from the ginger on top of the steak as well. To this day, you can find Hamburg steak all throughout Japan, for good reason. It's delicious.
And that, my friends, is the Hamburg steak made by my friend Onigiri. And again, if you want to check out Cooking with Chaos, I'll leave a link in the description or the QR code right here on screen. I'm gonna give this a big old bite. This thing is pretty thick, and the reason is because of that panko breadcrumb we had put in, so it doesn't lose a lot of its body. The breadcrumbs really help things keep their body. It won't shrink too much because the breadcrumbs are absorbing a lot of the liquid and then staying within the meat. This looks fantastic and it smells delicious, and I can't wait to try it with that ginger. Cheers. Salty, meaty. You can taste the pork and the beef because the beef that I used was 96% lean ground beef, but then it's complemented by the very fatty ground pork. So if you're making this, maybe use a super lean beef and a very fatty pork. They help each other a lot. Now, the one thing I'm not getting is too much of that gingery sauce flavor from just pouring the sauce over the top. So now I'm going to take the Scudani ginger and place it right on top and take another bite. This is gonna be a punch in the mouth. Cheers. Hear me out. Someone had asked me to make a Hashira food taste like tier list after this series. This ginger is going to be very high up. Put it on anything. Literally, we put it on the egg salad sandwich earlier. We're having it on rice. Once again, we're having it on this steak. This ginger is one of my new favorite condiments to make. And honestly, I'm just gonna make it a Cooking with Chaos card for a future pack. Like that's so good. But now I have to deal with this guy next week.
No, it's a little late.
Soba noodles have been a staple in Japan for centuries, but by the time we reach the Taisho era when Demon Slayer takes place, soba shops were everywhere, especially in cities, and I think it has a lot to do with Western influence of importing flour. Soba making is actually fairly difficult because buckwheat itself doesn't have a tremendous amount of gluten. Making buckwheat noodles with 100% buckwheat is not an easy task. By the Taisho era, we're seeing more and more flour introduced into Japan, and more soba shops using blends of buckwheat and flour to make their noodles. That's why when we go to a grocery store today, you'll often see soba made with a mix. So you'll usually get a mix of buckwheat flour for the texture and flavor, but it might be held together with a traditional style wheat flour. This just makes it so much easier to mass produce, but it does take away from the authenticity of having 100% buckwheat noodles.
Now, what's interesting is one of Tomioka's favorite foods is actually daikon, which is similar to moichiro, the mist hashira, and maybe because it's water and mist, and daikon's filled with a lot of water, so they just kind of went with it, both. I don't know, I'm just trying to draw conclusions here. I'm gonna be using daikon on all of my dishes today, including the very interesting special dish at the end for dinner that I've never made before, and I don't think I've ever seen on a menu in Japan, but maybe it's gonna be delicious. I'm not quite sure.
The reason I picked this dish for Tomioka is because of a really touching bonding moment between him and Tanjiro. Tanjiro was doing everything he could to get Tomioka to like him, and eventually invited him to a soba eating challenge. It was a really heartwarming scene, and it really did show that Tomioka does have a soft side. The soba I made in particular is cold soba or zaru soba. It's something I love eating in the summertime when I want to make noodles, but I don't want anything too hot. It's incredibly easy to make. You just need to boil the noodles, drain them, cool them, and serve them. And you can even prep them ahead of time, so they're great for meal prep. I like to serve this with grated and drained daikon. Draining the excess moisture out of the daikon does give it a very nice, snowy, flaky texture. But what this also does is it allows the suyu to get soaked up into the daikon when we go to dip this and eat this later. Suyu is just a simple blend of soy sauce, mirin, and dashi used for all kinds of dipping sauces, similar to like what you might have with tempura. Zaru soba is honestly one of my favorite foods, and I'm really glad we had this moment in Demon Hunter between Tomioka and Tanjiro.
The last thing I need is some suyu for this. Now, you can make this at home, but I'm gonna leave an Amazon link below because I love this brand. It's delicious, it's concentrated. You can thin it out if you want to, or use it as a dip for tempura or noodles. It's fantastic. I found it interesting that Tomioka and Tanjiro bonded over a noodle eating competition. I thought that was really sweet. I think food really can bring people together, and if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. Now first, I'm gonna try a bite like this. I love cold soba. It's one of my favorite things. My mouth is water. There's literally nothing to it. It's just the noodles and some daikon and green onion and sauce. Cheers. If you've never had it like this, you definitely should try it. But to me, the best way to eat this is by pouring the suyu on top of that daikon, because the daikon starts to absorb the suyu and it just gets punched with flavor. Now look at what my daikon looks like. That's why I like to dry it out. A lot of places won't go through the effort of drying it out, and I think it's worth it. We used to dry it out at a really high-end sushi bar I worked in to use it for other things, but then I started doing it for when I want to have noodles too, because then it just absorbs all that sauce. Cheers. Oh my God. It's salty, it's sweet. The noodles themselves have that beautiful buckwheat flavor that I love. I love buckwheat flour. I think it's underutilized and we should use it more and more because it's really good for you. But now with my relatively easy and healthy breakfast out of the way, I now have to go and try to touch my toes. But today's an upper body day, so this is just gonna be weird, isn't it, Gandalf?
Today I'm actually focusing on upper body, but since starting this challenge, I'd like to make sure that I do warm up everything. So this way I can really focus on the challenge of touching my toes before the end of the series. And admittedly, I have already touched my toes during this challenge. That to me is incredibly exciting, but don't worry, I'm still gonna be giving away some movie tickets to anyone who signs up for the newsletter at the description below over at cookingwithchaos.gg. But with my upper body training and my workout out of the way, it's time to go have some lunch because I'm hungry.
Now this next dish is something I've had previously in the series when we did Uzui's diet and we made that big old sushi platter, but this is a very different reason to have this. I'm gonna be making tamagoyaki for a very particular reason. Let me explain.
There's a really powerful moment in the series where Tomioka is recovering after a tragic loss. His friend and fellow Demon Slayer Sabito had lost his life defending the mountain during their training. Despite Sabito being the strongest, he was the only one who didn't make it after this demon attack. It really did hit Tomioka hard, and I think
anyone would have taken this information terribly. During Tomioka's recovery, we do see a plate of food at his bedside, a really humble meal laid out. Tamagoyaki, miso soup, white rice, and a bit of green tea. But there's this moment of quiet pain and fury, and Tomioka flings everything aside, overwhelmed with his grief. And that scene really stuck with me. So I thought, what better way to honor Sabito than by creating that meal with intention and some care? Tamagoyaki itself has roots in the Edo period, but it became more common in the Meiji and Taisho eras as eggs became more accessible. Miso soup, on the other hand, has been around for over 1,000 years and remained a staple even in the 20th century. To see Tamagoyaki used as a medicinal or recovery food at this era really did show us how available eggs were becoming as a protein source. Delicious, gentle, and easy to eat. Together with steamed white rice, this trio forms a classic nourishing meal, one that carries weight not just historically but emotionally. It's a dish to reflect on loss, on friendship, and on carrying forward the memories of those who came before. What I absolutely love about Tamagoyaki is how simple it is to make with a little bit of practice. I know folding the egg over a couple of times can be intimidating, but I promise you can do this. What's also great about it is that it's basically 4 to 5 condensed eggs into one giant egg that you can then slice and use for meal prep whenever you want or eat all at once. The miso soup is also incredibly simple. I'm using some leftover dashi I had, adding in a couple of tablespoons of white miso paste directly to the dashi, and once that's stirred together, I'm just chopping up a bit of tofu and taking my obligatory bite with a bit of salt because I absolutely love tofu. The miso soup then just gets plated up with a bit of the tofu, some seaweed chunks, a few green onions, and then I'm adding my miso soup directly on top of that. This is all you realistically need to make a really nice miso soup. Now the egg itself just comes right out of the pan after resting for a few minutes, and I'm just gonna cut this into a few slices. This slice was not good enough, so I'm just gonna eat it. We're just gonna ignore that slice. And I'm gonna be slicing my tamagoyaki into 4 equal pieces, removing this other piece that doesn't look good and placing the other nicer pieces onto a plate. The piece that doesn't look good is also going to be sacrificed to the mouth gods. Now I did mention I'm using daikon on every single dish, but in this case for the tamagoyaki, I'm going to grate this directly on top of the egg. What happens is you're going to have a daikon that adds a bit of spiciness to the egg. This is a perfect recovery meal. High protein, lots of salt, low fat, and it's incredibly heartwarming.
If you've been on the channel long enough, you know how much I love eggs, and in particular, tamagoyaki. Why tamagoyaki? Because it's eggs in its best form, condensed and ready to eat. Admittedly, I did have one darker layer in the middle, which is something you don't want to see typically because that means you overcook that layer, but just do your best. I'm gonna dip this, oh, the suyu is literally everywhere now. I'm gonna dip this in the suyu, get a bite with the daikon. Cheers. It's so good with the daikon in its stinky form. I actually like the raw daikon unwashed on egg for this application because it does add a ton of flavor. But if you don't like the stinkiness of daikon, you should just wash it like I did for breakfast. Get some of this miso soup. Oh, it's so hot still. I should just make this way more often. Like, it's just have it ready in the morning every single day. And I would just have this for breakfast. It's so easy to make. This was a pretty hard scene to watch in a lot of ways. Tomioka wasn't expecting to hear the news of his friend passing, especially because he was one of the strongest ones on the mountain. So I'm gonna enjoy this meal for him, but I still have one more session to do, and it's so hot outside and I'm extremely tired and everything is kind of feeling like it's coming to a head, and I'm kind of, it feels like I've been doing this for way longer than I have been. So I don't know what's gonna happen in the next couple of weeks, but we're gonna finish this.
I'm gonna be honest, guys, I am incredibly tired today, and this week has been quite a lot for a lot of reasons that I'll maybe tell you guys in a future video, but I had no desire to do another hot, sunny park workout. I am touching grass. I decided to come out by the river today because it's just such a nice day and see maybe if I can get maybe a little bit of stretching, or honestly just a little bit of chill time in before dinner, because my mind is fried. I don't think it has a lot to do with this series. The series has been pretty fun. It's just been a lot of other things, and just being by the water is pretty calming. So I'm gonna enjoy this for a little bit, maybe get some breathing exercises in, and then we'll go back, make a very special dinner. Tomioka's favorite meal, his favorite meal. And this is actually from a side story. So a lot of you guys may have not even seen this. I'm pretty stoked for it. Sometimes you just need a little reset, even if it's in the middle of your day. Take a few minutes to yourself,
and just enjoy it. Relax. Don't push all the time. I have to tell myself that. I feel like this was good, so I'm gonna go make Gyu's favorite thing for dinner. Okay, let's go. Here we go. Oh man, see that feels pretty good. I feel like my hips are getting strong, and yeah, that was nice. Okay, let's go back up the mountain.
Admittedly, it's been a crazy 9 weeks or so. I almost actually forgot to do Tomioka because he didn't consider himself a Hashira. I know he is. He's the water Hashira. I get it. But sometimes you just need to take a step back and zoom out a little bit into a dish we've never made before, and that is salmon daikon. Now, that sounds like it could go a million different ways, but salmon daikon is actually a soup. It reminds me of the same soup, the fish cake soup that I had made for K-pop Demon Hunters. And let me explain where I got the idea for this soup.
Now, what's interesting about this dish is it's not actually seen in any of the episodes of Demon Slayer or in the mainline manga. It was actually featured in a spin-off manga called Demon Slayer: The Stories of Water and Flame. This manga focused on stories of both Rengoku and Tomioka, giving us a glimpse into their personal lives. In one chapter, we see Tomioka get surprisingly excited about being served salmon daikon. And honestly, that caught me a little bit off guard because throughout the series, Tomioka rarely shows emotion, especially when it comes to food. But in that moment, he lights up. We can't see it because his back is turned, but we know he's excited. That was enough for me to say, okay, this is his comfort dish. This is something he truly loves. And surprisingly, this is also a dish I have never made before, which even makes it more meaningful to me. During the Taisho era, families often relied on preserved or salted salmon, especially in rural areas where fresh meat was expensive or hard to find. Combine that with daikon radish, which is pretty cheap and a really hearty winter vegetable, and you get a dish that's deeply frugal but packed with a ton of flavor and umami. Simmered gently in dashi broth, this soup is all about patience. It's a real cousin to oden, another simmered dish from the same era. I think the best part about this soup is that technically you can have the soup going all day and just drop the fish in when you're ready to eat because it only takes a couple of minutes to cook the salmon. Now this salmon only takes about 2 minutes to cook, and I'm gonna tell you about Cooking with Chaos in way less time than that. Cooking with Chaos is my brand new infinite recipe card system that features 60 different recipe cards that you can mix and match to make brand new meals every single time. There's 20 different proteins, 20 different side cards, and 20 different sauces. That means you have infinite combinations of flavors. But don't take my word for it. Look what the community have already made with Cooking with Chaos. But if infinite recipes aren't enough for you, I've included a D20 mechanic so you can just roll for dinner and let the fate decide what you're making that night. Macronutrients, so this way if you care about meal prep, that's gonna be included as well. And a go on an adventure mode. This way you can actually play with your food. Check out Cooking with Chaos at the link down below over at cookingwithchaos.gg or with the QR code on screen. Every purchase really does help the channel out directly because this is my product. This belongs to no one else. My wife and I are the only owners, and we've been working really hard to get this in your hands. So check out Cooking with Chaos at cookingwithchaos.gg at the link down below or the QR code on screen. Now I really do have to pull this salmon out because it's done. That's how fast it is. I absolutely love the speed at which you can make the fish here, and I love the versatility of the broth. Salmon daikon stays closer to home. It's something that would sit on the hearth all day, ready to warm you up between long, cold stretches of training. It's a dish of quiet resilience, and if that doesn't sound like you, I really don't know what does. This is what I'm having for dinner, salmon daikon soup.
What I find really interesting about this dish is there aren't a lot of reasons why Tomioka would have enjoyed it other than maybe some memories from when he was younger, or maybe he had gone out and had this with someone he really cared about, but it's more or less just a really comforting dish, similar to something like oden. Unfortunately, it is currently 100 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so this is probably the worst food to have right now. It is so hot. The house is warm, I've been cooking. Cheers to you, Tomioka. I'm having soup in 100-degree weather. I know we're in the house right now, but it's still hot. Oh, I've said this before with foods like this. Hold on. It's one of those foods that even if you've never had it, taking a bite of it can feel comforting. Does that make sense? It's like having chicken and dumplings. It's like having a homemade mac and cheese. It's like, for me, it's having dolma, which my grandma used to make, or kumpas, which my grandma also used to make. Maybe for Tomioka, this is that warming, beautiful feeling that you have when you eat something that just makes you feel good. And remember when I said you don't want to cook the salmon too long? Look at the color of the salmon in the middle. It has this really, really beautiful, almost like medium well. You could probably even go less time, but the salmon is still very creamy. If you throw it in there when you start cooking the daikon, it's just gonna turn into sawdust. And now, I have to deal with this guy, the stone hashira. This is mine, you can't have this. Gyome Himijima. This is actually Riven's Dawnbringer sword from League of Legends, and it's one of my favorite swords I've ever 3D printed and made. Could you imagine if they had this in Demon Slayer? You just smacking people around.
For breakfast, I'm starting the day off with takikomi gohan. Now at first glance, it looks like just seasoned rice with a bunch of stuff thrown into a pot, and admittedly, yes, that's what it is. It's typically white rice mixed together with vegetables, meat, seafood, and a few other ingredients. But dishes like this actually go back over 1,000 years in the Heian period. Back then, rice was actually considered really precious and somewhat rare, so stretching it with seasonal vegetables or grains was fairly common. Not just out of necessity, but really a way of celebrating nature's bounty for what's in season. By the Edo period, which was 1603 to about 1868, soy sauce and miso actually became more readily available and were everyday seasonings. And takikomi gohan actually evolved thanks to those flavors. So in my case, I'm seasoning this with sake, mirin, soy sauce, fresh cut ginger, dried shiitake mushrooms, which is really important to use dried instead of fresh, a touch of salt, and one whole yellow onion. All of this gets put into your rice steamer or rice cooker and just jostled around a bit so all of the flavors are incorporated, and you just make the rice like normal. Now for this dish, I'm going to be using some pressed tofu. This is just a personal preference, and it's maybe something Gyome would have actually enjoyed. I'll talk about some different protein options later, but for this pressed tofu, I'm making sure that I'm using about a medium firm tofu, putting it into my medieval tofu press, and if you don't have one of these, realistically, you can put tofu on a plate and throw another plate on top of it with some paper towels to drain any excess liquid. This only drains a little bit initially, but this is going to sit for about an hour just to make sure it presses all of that excess liquid out.
Now while the rice and tofu are working, I just have to tell you about Patreon. If you want to see some behind the scenes footage of some really interesting projects that I'm working on, things that I think you guys are going to love and things that I've never released on the channel before, head over to patreon.com/chefpk where you can support for as low as $1 a month. I have some of my old Food Wars videos up there, and I'm adding in some behind the scenes footage from a very special video that I'm making later this month. It's going to take a lot of time, so I hope you really like it. Okay, let's get back to this.
What's really interesting about takikomi gohan is how people started to make it their own. People began experimenting, adding mushrooms, burdock, fresh fish, or meats depending on the region, and the goal was to use things that you had readily available and that were local, especially for the time period. Now fast forward to the Taisho period where Demon Slayer takes place. Japan was modernizing really quickly, but in rural households, takikomi gohan remained a comfort food. It reminds me of something similar to the salmon daikon we had last week, or oden as you might find it today. But tofu remains one of my favorite toppings for anything.
The texture is almost like a soft or medium firm cheese. So good. Breakfast time.
Now making the rest of this dish is incredibly easy. I'm just using a small saute pan and seasoning the tofu with some salt, throwing the tofu onto the pan all at one time just because I have a bit of room to work with. This just gets seared on both sides. Admittedly, this topping is a little non-traditional for takikomi gohan. Farmers and families could cook everything in one pot, letting the rice absorb all those beautiful flavors of the dashi and the soy sauce and miso, and really whatever was on hand. In coastal areas, you might find something like octopus or clams in it, and in the mountainside, you might find more root vegetables or even maybe some wild game. So while city cafes were experimenting with Western dishes, things that Meat City would have loved, simple rice meals like this takikomi gohan stayed deeply tied to Japanese traditions. And that's why I really think it's the perfect fit for Gyome. This is takikomi gohan, Gyome's favorite food.
This does remind me of something like chanko nabe, something that sumo wrestlers would eat. The chanko nabe is usually a stew that will sit around all day that's usually served with rice, and it's really hearty but also really clean. There's not a ton of fats, there's not a ton of sugars at all other than what you might get naturally in vegetables. It also has some of my favorite foods, mushrooms and tofu. I love this setup right here. I probably should be making this for meal prep. This is gonna be a meal prep thing. Or it might be a new card in Cooking with Chaos. Look at that rice. Oh, here's the thing with cooking the rice like that. It takes on the flavor of everything you put in. So I'm getting a bit of mushroom, a little saltiness from the soy, you taste the ginger, but it also is a softer texture rice because you're adding in a bit more water and other ingredients to it. It's still really, really good rice, but it's not going to be the same kind of fluffy grains you might get if you're just cooking the rice on its own. That being said, the flavor is outstanding. Now what I really want to try is this combo, tofu and mushroom. Cheers. Dude, that's so good. You don't need anything else. You can put a little more soy sauce if you want it more salty, but this is fantastic. I'm gonna take this down, and then I have a Gyome-sized workout after eating this meal. Let's do this.
The Demon Slayers have to go through some insane training when training with the Stone Hashira, but in my case, I'm having a chest day. I've changed things up slightly with my routines just to make sure that I don't further injure my shoulder because it's still recovering. I had a slight tear in it and I really don't want to exasperate it. So today I'm trying out a new routine where it's mostly just pushing movements. This is a basic split routine that you can find almost anywhere, and realistically, this is not the most important part of the day. That's going to come later when I try my Stone Hashira training. That's going to involve throwing around Gyome's weapon in an open field and hopefully not hitting anyone. The one thing I am making sure of is practicing my push-ups to see how it feels on my shoulder. After this workout, I'm ready to eat lunch. It felt like breakfast wasn't enough, and so I want something a little more substantial.
Now for lunch, I think I'm gonna have something very special. And where did this come from? Kit Kat? What flavor is this? I don't know, but it's good. Where was I? For lunch, I'm once again having eggs. Yes, I know we had eggs for a couple of videos, but eggs are super important during this time period. But I'm gonna try to make one of the hardest omelets ever to make. Whether or not it's gonna work, I don't know, but I want the omelet on top of that rice.
For lunch, I'm actually going to be pairing the takikomi gohan with something that I love, eggs, and in this case, an rice style omelet made famous by Chef Motokichi. Now this is technically a yoshiku style dish, which is a Western inspired Japanese food, but it really does have a fascinating bit of history. Rice was actually first created at Rengatai, a Western style restaurant in Tokyo around 1900, which was during the Meiji period. The chefs there wanted to create something approachable for Japanese diners while experimenting with Western flavors. So they combined a fluffy French-style omelet with Japanese fried rice, topping it with ketchup. One of my favorite Japanese foods, period. By the Taisho era, cafes known as kisaten started spreading rapidly, especially in cities like Tokyo and Osaka. These coffee houses were modern, Western-influenced spaces where young people, writers, and intellectuals all gathered to have a good meal that wasn't strictly Japanese. On their menus, you'd often find yoshiku-style dishes like rice, curry rice, and even sandwiches. Rice represented Japan's growing embrace of Western culture while still keeping its heart. The rice. It was fusion before fusion, and in a way that really does reflect the Taisho era itself. A period caught between tradition and modernization, old ways with new ideas. Gyome is both kind and incredibly strong. Together, they really do make the balance that defines him. Just like the balance of new and old with takikomi gohan and a Western-style omelet.
Oh God, oh God. Don't fall over, please. I don't know if it's gonna open up. We'll see, but it looks really nice. Now, Chef Motokichi would open this thing up and hopefully reveal kind of an undercooked center. I did overcook the egg. It's a little bit brown on top, but let's see if we can at least reveal a jammy inside. Maybe. Ready? I don't know if it's gonna work. Oh, hold on. Come on, don't fall over. It's really tall. Okay, I see you, egg. Look at that. That is not bad. It's a little tall, so it kind of fell apart a little bit, but if we just turn it, no one has to know. Just hide this piece back here. Honestly, that's not a bad looking inside. I just kind of winged it. I haven't made this omelet in forever, and I thought this would be a really, really nice twist on Gyome's favorite style of rice, having it this way, plus the extra protein from leftover tofu from this morning. Let's do this. Now, realistically, you should be putting some gravy on here or some demi-glace sauce, but because I don't think Gyome would actually eat anything super rich and heavy like that because he's always training, I'm gonna go with just the egg, the rice, and the tofu. My mouth is watering right now. I'm super hungry after my workout, so this is kind of a perfect meal in a lot of ways. A little higher in fat than I normally would have, but eggs, tofu, and rice, man, you just need some veggies in there and you're good. I think there's a hidden mushroom. That counts. Cheers. Oh my God. I loved breakfast, but the creaminess of the egg, that just sets it off for me. Let me show you the ultimate bite right now. There is the ultimate bite. Jammy egg, the rice underneath, a little mushroom on this side over here, and a piece of tofu. Oh. Why is it that the simpler foods in Gyome are just a little, cut above the rest for me? We had some crazy stuff. This is something I think I would eat literally every day. But now I have Stone Hashira weapon training. I don't know how this is gonna work, but I'm gonna try. I have a very particular thing I wanna do, and I don't know if it's going to happen.
Now, because I decided to film this on a holiday weekend, everywhere is busy except for this park where I actually trained for the Blue Lock diet. So I figure, why not come full circle and get a little bit of stone Hashira training in? This might hurt, and I think my weapon is slightly breaking, so the flail might go flying.
For the past 9 weeks, I've been using this challenge as a way for me to be able to touch my toes. Week 1, I was nowhere close, but by week 9, I was getting closer and closer. I still maintained all of my same stretching exercises because I do feel like pre-stretching is healthy to get the deep stretches in, and now in week 9, I can do this. I can actually place my fingers underneath my toes. I haven't been able to do this in over 10 years, and knowing that I put in the work to reach this result goes to show you that hard work does pay off.
At the start of this series, almost 9 weeks ago now, I wasn't able to do that. Yes, it took time, it took a lot of pain, a lot of effort, and a lot of dedication, but I told myself this is something I wanted to do. My hope out of all of this is that you got something out of this series. Touching your toes seems like something so trivial to really care about, but if you care about something, put some time into it, whatever that might be, and you'll probably get good results. Now, I have to try the thing that I kind of care about, but seems very dangerous.
And that thing is a simple butterfly kick. I say simple because I used to be able to do this relatively easily, but I haven't been able to do them that well.
One of you guys in the comments told me to kick my leg a little bit more, so I'm really trying to put the effort into it. And yes, I do read basically every comment, so please be nice to each other.
But the butterfly kick isn't the reason why I'm out here on this field. I'm out here on this field because I have a very dangerous weapon I want to play with, and that is Guillaume's weapon of choice. It's a one-handed axe on one end and a ball and chain with spikes on the other end. This is the most medieval weapon I think I've ever seen, but seeing Guillaume use it just gives me so much hype. He's an absolute master at both offense and defense with this weapon, and that's what I want to try to achieve. Now, this really does remind me of the rope spear used in martial arts, but swinging around this ball and chain while being fun is dangerous because said ball and chain is attached with plastic and it likes to fly away.
I kind of had a feeling that was going to happen because the links are made of plastic. So that sucks. We're going to try to field repair this.
I had to use a little bit of ingenuity to get a new link on this, but I was able to reattach it together.
Let's try that again, shall we? It might break again. I don't know. It's cheap. I got it on Amazon. You know, the real one would never break. Ever.
I was actually really sad to have this break on me, even though I was able to repair it because I was just getting into it. What was really interesting is I started to feel like this was similar to my training that I had done with Toji a few years ago. The 3-section staff really did set me up to be able to use Guillaume's weapon somewhat well. I actually just practiced the same movements I know with my 3-sectional staff, like this ground flower technique that I've practiced before. I have never ever used this weapon until today, and I am so stoked at how it feels.
It's definitely falling apart a little bit. Like you can see where it's being anchored is being yanked out. So that's fun though. I think I've translated my Toji training to Guillaume training. That's pretty awesome. Okay, that's cool.
Now, one last thing I really wanted to try was doing a butterfly kick with Guillaume's weapon, but I just wasn't confident enough using this thing. My worry was that this flail was going to fly straight into my face and I would end up like Vampire Michael Jackson Muzan.
I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun, and I think now it's time for some dinner. I'm really looking forward to dinner, and I think Guillaume would actually really love this.
I have to admit, that was some of the most fun I've had on this series, and I'm so glad I decided to not go to the park where the little children were, because once that ball and chain broke, I was terrified. I was so glad no one was around to get smacked in the face, unless it were Vampire Michael Jackson, who was not present because it's sunlight outside. And before I reveal what dinner is, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's watched the 9 videos I've made on this series. Demon Slayer does mean a lot to me, and I love this anime, and I'm so excited to watch Infinity Castle when it drops next week, and I'm not excited to wait 4 more years to finish it. And even though I did accomplish my own goal of touching my toes, I'm still going to be giving away free movie tickets to anyone who signs up for the newsletter over at cookingwithchaos.gg. Thank you to everyone who's purchased a copy of Cooking with Chaos, my infinite recipe card system with 60 different recipes you can mix and match to make brand new meals every single time, because honestly, this channel wouldn't be here without you and without Cooking with Chaos. I'm confident you'll love this if you pick it up, and I'm going to be at Rose City Comic Con showing it off in person if you're going to stop by. So thank you to everyone so far for watching this video, watching this series, and being here on the channel. and supporting what we do. I have some really interesting plans for the future, so make sure you get subscribed and check out patreon.com/chefpk for some behind the scenes stuff. Now, let us make dinner.
For dinner, I'm actually making takikomi gohan alongside tonkatsu. Tonkatsu has its roots in European cuisine, and in the late 1800s, Western restaurants in Japan started serving breaded cutlets inspired by French and Italian style cutlets. Now, from what I could gather, this dish actually first appeared in Tokyo in 1899 at Rengatai, the same restaurant that gave us the omrice for lunch. At first, it was beef cutlets, but over time, pork really did become the standard since it was cheaper and much more accessible. By the Taisho era, tonkatsu was considered a modern meal, hearty, filling, and very different from Japan's traditional fish or vegetable-based diet. Restaurants would serve it with rice, miso soup, and shredded cabbage to really balance out the richness. Every tonkatsu-style restaurant I had visited in Japan served it this way: fried pork, side of rice, cabbage, and maybe some pickles, and it's all you needed. Middle-class families, students, and workers were really drawn to it because it symbolized that progress, modernization, and the changing times. That's important because this was a time Japan was industrializing, urbanizing, and embracing Western technology and culture. Tonkatsu wasn't just food, it was truly a statement. Eating it more or less meant participating in a new Japan.
Now hear me out. I'm gonna be making this in the air fryer for two reasons. One, I actually don't want that much grease today. I feel pretty good, and eating anything super heavy doesn't really sound good to my belly. And two, we have a wind hashira and we have the fire or flame hashira. Combined, they make air fryer hashira. It's simple math. I guess that technically means air fryer hashira is more powerful than Sanemi and Rengoku. Think about that.
Would that make gyome a meat tenderizer? I'm not quite sure, but it just makes sense. Tonkatsu feels like the perfect choice for his dinner. It's protein-packed, hearty, and filling, but what it really reminds me of is when I sat down to have dinner with one of the greatest karate champions in Japan, Nick Pettis. A few years ago, he invited me over to his home to have a karate-style meal. It was a meal filled with lots of love, laughter, and incredibly good food.
Okay, let's see. This is the true test, right? I think it's good.
With the crispy scrape test out of the way, the last thing to do is to plate up a ton of this pork on top of the rice. I've been eating this rice all day, and I can safely say I am not tired of it. I would eat this rice the entire next day too, because it's so versatile and I really love the flavor here.
That's how I let Rachel know that food is ready.
Takikomi gohan with pork tonkatsu. And if this meal isn't fit for gyome, nothing is. This is the final meal of my hashira journey.
This is the final meal of my Demon Slayer Taisho era series. It's pretty fitting to me that I think this is gonna be one of my favorites. Gyome so far has had no misses. And I think it's because I just didn't want anything extravagant. Last week when I trained as Gyu, the water hashira, I really did like taking a bit of time off and just reflecting on this past 8 or 9 weeks now. And I think it all culminates to this bite. Cheers. The pork still has a pretty nice crust on it, even though it was done in the air fryer. It's nice and salty from the seasoning. It's still pretty juicy, and it goes perfectly with this rice. I need another bite. This series was a ton of work, and thank you guys for sticking it out and being here. If you want to pick up my brand new infinite recipe card system, Cooking with Chaos, you can also check that out at the link down below or at the QR code right here on screen, or come see me at Rose City Comic Con, September 5th through the 7th. Make sure you get subscribed to see the next chapter of this channel. My name is Chef PK, and remember, keep playing with your food.